Ryan Mercer's world stopped the moment his 5-year-old daughter whispered those three impossible words in a crowded mall on Christmas Eve. "Daddy, that's Mommy." The woman crying near the food court was Ava, his ex-wife who had vanished 3 years ago without explanation, leaving only a note that said she needed to find herself. Now she was here, broken and trembling, and their daughter was running toward her with arms wide open. Ryan had spent 3 years building a life from the ruins Ava left behind, protecting his daughter from the questions he couldn't answer. But in that moment, with Sadie's small hand slipping from his grip, Ryan realized the past wasn't buried at all. It was standing 20 feet away, about to shatter everything he'd fought to hold together. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments and hit that like button so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's dive in. The mall smelled like cinnamon and desperation. Ryan Mercer stood in line with his daughter Sadie pressed against his leg, her hand tucked into his like she was afraid the crowd might swallow her whole. Christmas Eve always brought out the worst kind of chaos. Last-minute shoppers clutching bags like life preservers, teenagers laughing too loud near the fountain, and somewhere in the distance, a mall Santa ho-ho-ho-ing with the enthusiasm of someone counting down to their last shift. Ryan had never been a fan of malls, especially not at Christmas, but Sadie had been asking to see Santa for weeks, her wide brown eyes filled with the kind of hope that made saying no feel like crushing something sacred. So here they were, third in line, waiting behind a kid who was currently explaining to Santa in excruciating detail why he deserved not one, but 3 gaming systems. "Daddy, do you think Santa remembers me from last year?" Sadie's voice was small but steady, the way it always was when she was working through something important. Ryan looked down at his daughter and felt his chest tighten the way it always did when she asked questions that mattered. She had Ava's eyes, deep brown and impossibly expressive, but everything else was pure Ryan. Stubborn chin, messy dark hair that refused to cooperate, and a quiet intensity that made people underestimate her until she opened her mouth. "I think Santa remembers every kid he meets," Ryan said, squeezing her hand gently. "Especially the good ones." "Am I good?" Sadie asked, tilting her head up to look at him. Ryan's throat went tight. This was the kind of question Sadie asked more often than he liked, the kind that made him wonder if she somehow sensed the hole Ava had left behind, the absence that colored everything even when neither of them spoke about it. "You're the best," Ryan said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Sadie seemed satisfied with that answer and turned her attention back to the line, which was finally moving. The gaming system kid was being led away by his exhausted-looking mother, and a little girl with pigtails was climbing onto Santa's lap, her list already unfolding like a scroll. Ryan checked his watch. 4:30. If they got out of here by 5, they could grab dinner at the diner on 4th Street. Sadie's favorite, the one with the jukebox and the waitress who always brought extra whipped cream for her hot chocolate. Then home, where Ryan would spend the evening wrapping the presents he'd hidden in the back of his closet and assembling the dollhouse that had taken him 3 months of overtime shifts to afford. It wasn't a perfect Christmas, but it was theirs. And after 3 years of rebuilding, of learning how to be both mother and father to a little girl who asked questions he couldn't always answer, Ryan had learned to find peace in small victories. The little girl with pigtails finished her list and slid off Santa's lap, clutching a candy cane like a trophy. The line moved forward. One more kid, then Sadie. "Daddy, I have to go potty," Sadie announced suddenly, tugging on his hand. Ryan suppressed a sigh. Of course she did. Timing had never been Sadie's strong suit. "Can you hold it for 5 more minutes?" Ryan asked, glancing at the family ahead of them. A harried-looking dad with twin boys who were currently engaged in what appeared to be a wrestling match. "I really have to go," Sadie said, her voice taking on that urgent edge that Ryan had learned meant they had approximately 2 minutes before disaster struck. "All right, come on." Ryan stepped out of line, keeping Sadie's hand firmly in his as they navigated through the crowd toward the restrooms near the food court. The mall was even more packed now, waves of people moving in different directions like some chaotic dance nobody had choreographed. Ryan had just spotted the restroom sign when Sadie stopped walking. Her hand went rigid in his, and Ryan felt her entire body tense like she'd been flash frozen. "Sadie? What's wrong?" Sadie didn't answer. She was staring at something across the food court, her face gone pale in a way that made Ryan's stomach drop. "Sadie, talk to me." "What?" "Daddy." Sadie's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the noise of the mall like a knife. "She's crying." Ryan followed his daughter's gaze across the crowded food court, past the tables filled with families and teenagers, past the Sparrow and the Panda Express, to a woman standing alone near the far wall. She had her back to them, but Ryan could see her shoulders shaking. She was wearing a gray coat that looked too thin for winter, and her dark hair fell past her shoulders in waves that Ryan would have recognized anywhere. His heart stopped. Actually stopped. Like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. No. Not here. Not now. Not ever. "Daddy, we should help her," Sadie said, and before Ryan could process what was happening, before he could grab her or stop her or even find his voice, Sadie pulled her hand from his and started running. "Sadie, wait!" Ryan lunged forward, but she was fast, darting between tables with the confidence of a kid who had no concept of danger. The woman must have heard the sound of small feet approaching because she turned, wiping at her face with the back of her hand. And that's when Ryan saw her face clearly for the first time in 3 years. Ava, his ex-wife, Sadie's mother. The woman who had walked out of their lives on a Tuesday morning with nothing but a suitcase and a note that said she needed to find herself. Time didn't slow down. It shattered. Ryan watched as Sadie skidded to a stop 3 feet from Ava, watched as recognition flickered across his daughter's face, watched as Sadie's mouth formed a word that Ryan couldn't hear over the roaring in his ears. "Mommy!" Ava's face crumpled. She dropped to her knees like someone had cut her strings, and Ryan saw her hand come up to her mouth, saw the tears streaming down her face, saw 3 years of absence collapse into a single moment of impossible reality. "Sadie?" Ava's voice cracked on the name, broken and disbelieving. Sadie took a step forward, then another, and suddenly she was in Ava's arms, and Ava was holding her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Ava's shoulders shook with sobs, her face buried in Sadie's hair, and Ryan stood frozen 20 feet away, watching his entire carefully constructed life come apart at the seams. People were starting to stare. A woman at the nearest table had her phone out, probably already composing some viral post about a heartwarming reunion. Ryan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. This wasn't heartwarming. This was a nightmare wrapped in Christmas lights. He forced his feet to move, forced himself to cross those 20 feet, even though every instinct screamed at him to grab Sadie and run. When he reached them, Ava looked up, and Ryan saw his own shock reflected in her red-rimmed eyes. "Ryan," she whispered, "get away from my daughter." His voice came out low and dangerous, barely controlled. Ava flinched but didn't let go of Sadie. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't think." "You didn't think?" Ryan's voice rose, and he saw several heads turn in their direction. He forced himself to breathe, to lower his voice. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up and— Daddy, don't yell at Mommy!" Sadie's voice cut through his anger like a blade. She had pulled back from Ava but was still holding her hand, and her face was filled with a confusion so raw it made Ryan's chest ache. "Sadie, come here." Ryan held out his hand, trying to keep his voice steady. "But Daddy, now Sadie." Sadie looked between them, her small face crumpling, and Ryan hated himself for putting that expression there. But he couldn't let this happen. Not here. Not like this. Not when he'd spent 3 years protecting Sadie from the questions he couldn't answer, from the hurt he couldn't explain. "Please." Ava's voice was barely audible. "Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." "You're asking?" Ryan's laugh was bitter. "You walked out. You left. You don't get to ask for anything." "I know." Ava was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. "I know I don't deserve it, but please, just let me explain." "Explain?" Ryan felt his control slipping, felt 3 years of carefully buried anger rising up his throat like acid. "You want to explain why you abandoned your daughter? Why you left a 2-year-old without her mother? Why you destroyed our family and never looked back?" "Daddy, stop!" Sadie was crying now too, tears streaming down her face as she looked between them. "Stop being mean to Mommy." The word hit Ryan like a physical blow. "Mommy!" Sadie still called her mommy, even after 3 years, even though she barely remembered her, even though Ryan had worked so hard to fill that space. Ryan looked at his daughter, his beautiful, sensitive daughter, who was crying in the middle of a mall food court on Christmas Eve because her father couldn't control his anger and her mother couldn't stay away. He looked at Ava, who was shaking so hard she could barely stand. And he realized that every eye in the food court was on them, that they were making a scene, that Sadie would remember this moment for the rest of her life. He had to make a choice. He could grab Sadie and walk away, could protect her from whatever fresh pain Ava was about to deliver. Or he could give Ava 5 minutes, not for her sake, but for Sadie's. Because his daughter was holding her mother's hand and looking at him with those wide brown eyes filled with hope and confusion, and Ryan knew that walking away right now would hurt her more than anything Ava could say. 5 minutes, Ryan said finally, his voice hard as stone. That's all you get. Ava nodded, wiping at her face. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me. This isn't for you. Ryan scooped Sadie up, settling her on his hip even though she was getting too big for it. She wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her face against his shoulder, her small body shaking with sobs. It's okay, baby, Ryan murmured, rubbing her back. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. It was a lie, and they both knew it. Nothing about this was okay. There was a coffee shop on the other side of the food court, one of those chain places with overpriced drinks and uncomfortable chairs. Ryan headed toward it without waiting to see if Ava would follow. He could feel her presence behind him, could hear her ragged breathing, but he didn't turn around. The coffee shop was half empty, most of the Christmas Eve shoppers opting for faster food options. Ryan chose a table in the back corner, away from the windows, away from prying eyes. He set Sadie down in a chair and crouched in front of her, wiping the tears from her cheeks. Hey, look at me, Ryan said softly. Sadie's eyes met his, red and puffy. You okay? Sadie nodded, but her lip was trembling. I'm going to get you some hot chocolate, okay? And then we're going to talk to your mom. But I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? I'm always brave, Sadie whispered. Ryan's heart broke a little more. I know you are, sweetheart. I know. He stood up and turned to find Ava hovering a few feet away, looking like she was afraid to come closer. She looked different than he remembered, thinner, older, worn down in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with whatever hell she'd been living through. Her coat was shabby, her jeans had a hole in the knee, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Sit, Ryan said, gesturing to the chair across from Sadie. Ava sat down slowly, carefully, like she was afraid any sudden movement might shatter the fragile permission Ryan had granted. She looked at Sadie, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Hi, baby, Ava said, her voice barely above a whisper. Hi, Mommy, Sadie said, and Ryan saw Ava's face crumple at the word. I'll get drinks, Ryan said abruptly, needing space, needing air, needing something other than this suffocating moment. He walked to the counter and ordered hot chocolate for Sadie and coffee for himself. He didn't ask Ava what she wanted. When he returned to the table, Ava was holding Sadie's hand across the table, not speaking, just looking at her like she was trying to memorize every detail. Sadie was watching her mother with that intense curiosity that meant she was processing something big, working through questions she didn't know how to ask yet. Ryan set the drinks down and took the chair next to Sadie, close enough to touch her, to protect her if this went wrong. You have 5 minutes, Ryan said, checking his watch deliberately. Start talking. Ava took a shaky breath, her eyes moving between Sadie and Ryan. I don't know where to start. How about why you left? Ryan's voice was cold. That seems like a good place. I was sick, Ava said quietly. In my head. I was so sick, Ryan, and I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't even understand what was happening to me. That's not an excuse. I'm not making excuses. Ava's voice cracked. I'm trying to explain. After Sadie was born, something broke inside me. It wasn't just baby blues or being tired. It was like drowning. Every day I felt like I was drowning, and everyone kept telling me I should be happy, that I had this beautiful baby and this perfect life. But all I could feel was this crushing weight that made it hard to breathe. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. You had postpartum depression. Ava nodded, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know that's what it was. I just knew I was failing as a mother, failing as a wife, failing at everything. And the worse I felt, the more I convinced myself that you and Sadie would be better off without me, that I was poison, that I was hurting you both just by being there. So you left, Ryan said flatly. You decided we'd be better off without you, and you just walked away. I was going to kill myself. The words landed like a bomb in the middle of the table. Ryan felt his breath catch, felt the world tilt sideways. The day I left, Ava continued, her voice shaking, I had it all planned out. I was going to drive to the bridge on Highway 40 and I was just going to end it. I thought that was the kindest thing I could do. Remove myself from your lives so you could be happy. Mommy, what does that mean? Sadie's small voice broke through the tension. Ava looked at her daughter, and Ryan saw something in her eyes that he'd never seen before. Raw, devastating honesty. It means Mommy was very sad, Ava said softly. So sad that she thought the world would be better without her in it. But that's not true. That was just the sadness talking, making Mommy think bad things. Are you still sad? Sadie asked. Sometimes, Ava admitted, but I learned how to fight the sadness. I learned how to ask for help. Ryan's hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of the table to steady them. Why didn't you call? Why didn't you tell me what was happening? Because I was ashamed, Ava said, and the word came out like a confession. Because I thought you'd be angry that I wasn't strong enough to handle being a mother. Because I thought I was supposed to love every moment of it, and instead I was falling apart, and I couldn't understand why. I wrote that note because I knew if I tried to explain, you'd stop me. You'd try to fix it, and I was so convinced that I was the problem that needed to be removed. What changed? Ryan asked. Why didn't you? I couldn't do it. Ava's voice broke completely. I drove to that bridge, and I sat in my car for 2 hours, and I kept thinking about Sadie, about how she'd grow up knowing her mother chose to leave her, and I realized that even if I thought I was poison, I didn't have the right to make that choice for her. So I drove to a hospital instead, and I admitted myself. 3 years ago, Ryan said slowly. You've been in treatment for 3 years? 6 months in a facility, then intensive outpatient therapy, then group sessions. I lost 2 years just trying to remember who I was before the depression took over, and then another year building up the courage to come back. You could have called, Ryan said, and he heard the anger bleeding through his careful control. You could have let us know you were alive. You could have given us something other than silence. I know. Ava's tears were falling freely now. I was so ashamed, Ryan, of what I'd done, of who I'd become. I kept telling myself I'd reach out when I was better, when I'd fixed myself, when I had something to offer other than more pain. But there was never a right time. And the longer I waited, the harder it became. Why now? Ryan asked. Why show up on Christmas Eve? In a mall, crying in public where Sadie could see you. Ava let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. I wasn't planning this. I moved back to town 3 months ago. I got a job at a call center. Nothing special. I've been living in a studio apartment on the west side, trying to build a life. I've driven past our old house twice, but I could never make myself knock on the door. Today I came to the mall to buy wrapping paper, and I saw all the families, all the kids with their parents, and it hit me that Sadie's 7 now, that I've missed 3 Christmases, 3 birthdays, 3 years of her life, and I just broke. She's 5, Ryan corrected quietly. Sadie's 5. Ava's face went white. 5? But that means you left when she was 2. It's been 3 years. Ava closed her eyes, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I thought she was 4 when I left. I've been counting wrong. I've missed even more than I thought. Sadie had been quiet through most of this exchange, her hot chocolate forgotten as she watched her parents with wide, serious eyes. Now she spoke, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. Did you stop loving us? The question was so simple, so devastatingly childlike, that Ryan felt his throat close completely. Ava looked at Sadie, and Ryan saw his ex-wife's face transform with pain so profound it was almost physical. No. Ava reached across the table, taking both of Sadie's small hands in hers. Baby, no. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Even when I was sick, even when I couldn't be there, I loved you. I love you so much it hurts. I just didn't know how to love myself enough to stay. But you're here now, Sadie said, and Ryan heard the hope in her voice, fragile and terrifying. I'm here now, Ava agreed. So you can stay? Sadie asked. You can come home? Ryan felt panic claw up his chest. This was moving too fast, spinning out of control. Sadie didn't understand the complexity of what had happened, didn't understand that 3 years of absence couldn't be erased by one chance encounter in a mall. Sadie, it's not that simple, Ryan started. Why not? Sadie looked at him with those impossibly honest eyes. Mommy was sick, but now she's better, so she can come home. Baby, that's not... Ryan struggled to find words that wouldn't crush his daughter's hope, but wouldn't encourage impossible expectations. Mommy has her own place now, and we have our place, and that's how it needs to be. But it's Christmas, Sadie said, and her lips started trembling again. Families are supposed to be together at Christmas. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. How did you explain to a 5-year-old that some breaks couldn't be mended, that some absences left scars too deep to heal? Your daddy's right, Ava said softly, and Ryan heard the grief in her voice. I can't just come home. I have to earn that. I have to prove that I'm strong enough now, that I won't hurt you again. You won't hurt me, Sadie insisted. I know you won't. I hope you're right, Ava whispered, but I understand if your daddy needs time to trust that. Ryan looked at Ava, really looked at her, for the first time since this nightmare began. She looked broken, but there was something different in her eyes than the last time he'd seen her. A clarity that hadn't been there before. A strength that looked hard-won and fragile, but real. I should go, Ava said, starting to stand up. I've taken more than 5 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. Wait. The word came out before Ryan could stop it. Ava froze, half standing. Ryan looked at Sadie, at the hope blazing in her eyes, at the tears still wet on her cheeks. He thought about the dollhouse waiting at home, wrapped in newspaper and hidden in the closet. He thought about the Christmas dinner he'd planned, just the two of them, like every holiday for the past 3 years. He thought about how Sadie sometimes still asked why Mommy left, even though she barely remembered her, how she'd watch other kids with their mothers at the park and go quiet in a way that broke Ryan's heart, how she'd once told her kindergarten teacher that her mommy was finding herself, because that's what Ryan had told her, and the teacher had given him a look of such profound sympathy that Ryan had wanted to sink through the floor. Tomorrow, Ryan heard himself say, Christmas dinner, 4 o'clock. Ava's eyes went wide. Ryan, you don't have to. I'm not doing this for you, Ryan said firmly. I'm doing this for Sadie. One dinner, no promises beyond that. Can Mommy help cook? Sadie asked, bouncing in her seat. Can she help with the turkey? I'm doing ham, Ryan said. And no, Mommy can just show up. I'll be there, Ava said, her voice thick with emotion. What can I bring? Nothing. Just yourself. Ryan stood up, picking up Sadie's barely touched hot chocolate. We should go. We still need to see Santa. Santa! Sadie had clearly forgotten all about Santa and the chaos. Can Mommy come see Santa with us? No, Ryan said quickly. Too quickly. He softened his voice. Mommy has things to do, and we're running late. Ava nodded, understanding the dismissal for what it was. She looked at Sadie, and Ryan saw her memorizing their daughter's face again. Can I hug you goodbye? Ava asked Sadie. Sadie launched herself at her mother without hesitation, wrapping her small arms around Ava's neck. Ava held her like she was something precious and breakable, her face buried in Sadie's hair. I love you so much, Ava whispered. I'm so sorry I left. I'm so sorry for all of it. It's okay, Mommy, Sadie said. I forgive you. Ryan felt something crack in his chest at those words. Sadie forgives you. Just like that. Because to a 5-year-old, love and forgiveness were simple things, uncomplicated by years of hurt and anger. Ava set Sadie down gently and looked at Ryan. Thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it. You don't, Ryan agreed. But Sadie does. So don't mess this up. I won't, Ava promised. I'll see you tomorrow? 4 o'clock, Ryan repeated. Don't be late. He took Sadie's hand and walked away without looking back, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Behind him, he heard Ava let out a sob, but he kept walking. If he stopped, if he turned around, he might say something he'd regret. Or worse, something he'd mean. The Santa line had moved. They were next now, a Christmas miracle of timing that felt absurd given everything that had just happened. Ryan got Sadie settled on Santa's lap, watching as she leaned in to whisper her wish. She was up there longer than most kids, having what appeared to be an entire conversation with Santa, who listened with the patience of someone who genuinely loved his job. When Sadie climbed down, clutching a candy cane, she was beaming. "What did you ask for?" Ryan asked as they walked toward the exit. "I can't tell you," Sadie said seriously. "It won't come true if I tell." "Fair enough." Ryan pushed through the mall doors into the cold December evening. The parking lot was chaos, cars circling for spots, families loading shopping bags into trunks. Somewhere in the distance, Ryan could hear Christmas music playing, tinny and too cheerful. "Daddy?" Sadie tugged on his hand as they walked toward their car. "Are you mad at Mommy?" Ryan took a long breath, trying to figure out how to answer honestly without hurting his daughter. "I'm confused about Mommy and sad about what happened. But I'm not mad at you, okay? None of this is your fault." I know that," Sadie said with the simple confidence of childhood. "Mommy was sick. That's nobody's fault." Ryan squeezed her hand gently. When had his daughter become so wise? They drove home through streets lined with Christmas lights, Sadie chattering about Santa and presents, and how excited she was that Mommy was coming for Christmas dinner. Ryan let her talk, offering monosyllabic responses, his mind spinning through everything that had just happened. Ava was back, the woman who had destroyed his world, who had left him to pick up the pieces alone, who had made him learn how to braid hair and paint nails and explain why Mommy wasn't coming back. She was back, and he'd just invited her to Christmas dinner. What the hell had he been thinking? But when he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Sadie's face, saw the joy there that had been missing for so long, Ryan knew exactly what he'd been thinking. He'd been thinking about his daughter, about giving her one day, one chance, to have what she'd been missing. He just hoped it wouldn't break her heart all over again. They pulled into the driveway of their small house on Maple Street, the Christmas lights Ryan had hung last weekend twinkling in the darkness. It wasn't much, a 2-bedroom ranch that needed a new roof and better insulation, but it was theirs. Ryan had bought it 6 months after Ava left, needing a fresh start, needing a place that didn't hold her ghost in every corner. Inside, Sadie headed straight for her room to play, while Ryan stood in the kitchen, staring at the ham he'd bought yesterday sitting in the fridge. A ham for 3 people instead of 2. The thought made his stomach turn. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Ava. I got your number from the emergency contact list at Sadie's old daycare. I hope that's okay. I just wanted to say thank you again, and to let you know I'm serious about this, about being better, about earning your trust. See you tomorrow." Orion stared at the message for a long moment, then put his phone face down on the counter without responding. He wasn't ready to talk to Ava, wasn't ready to process any of this. But tomorrow was coming whether he was ready or not. From down the hall, he could hear Sadie singing, some songs she'd learned in kindergarten. Her voice high and sweet and unbearably hopeful. Ryan closed his eyes and prayed to whatever forces might be listening that he'd made the right choice. Because Sadie's heart was on the line now, and if Ava broke it again, Ryan didn't know if his daughter would survive it. He didn't know if he would either. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching shadows from the streetlight outside, paint patterns across the plaster, his mind replaying the scene in the mall over and over, like a movie he couldn't turn off. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ava's face, older, thinner, marked by whatever hell she'd been through, and heard Sadie's voice asking if Mommy had stopped loving them. At 3 a.m, Ryan gave up on sleep entirely. He padded into the kitchen in his pajama pants and stood in front of the refrigerator, staring at the ham like it held answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. Tomorrow was Christmas. Ava was coming to dinner, and Ryan had approximately 13 hours to figure out how to survive it without losing his mind. He pulled out his phone and opened the text from Ava, reading it for the 100th time. The words hadn't changed. She was still sorry, still serious about earning his trust, still planning to show up at 4 o'clock and turn his carefully ordered world upside down. Ryan's thumb hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to text back, wanted to set ground rules or demand more answers or tell her not to come after all. But what would he say? That he'd made a mistake inviting her? That Sadie's hope was too dangerous to encourage? That he was terrified of what would happen if Ava walked back into their lives only to disappear again? He put the phone down without typing anything. The house was too quiet. Ryan moved through the rooms like a ghost, straightening things that didn't need straightening, checking on Sadie 3 times even though she was sleeping peacefully, her small body curled around the stuffed rabbit she'd had since birth. In the living room, the Christmas tree stood in the corner, its lights unplugged for the night, presents arranged underneath in newspaper wrapping because Ryan had never been good at making things look pretty. The dollhouse was there, the biggest package, and Ryan remembered the night he'd ordered it, sitting at his laptop after Sadie had gone to bed, scrolling through options he couldn't afford until he found one that made him think, yeah, that's the one she'll love. He'd worked 4 Saturdays of overtime to pay for it, had assembled it last week while Sadie was at a sleepover, his back aching as he fitted tiny pieces of furniture into tiny rooms. Now Ava was coming back, and Ryan wondered if a dollhouse would be enough. If anything he could give Sadie would ever be enough to fill the space Ava had left behind. When dawn finally broke, Ryan was sitting at the kitchen table with his 3rd cup of coffee, making a list of everything he needed to do before 4 o'clock. Clean the house, cook the ham, set the table for 3 instead of 2. Figure out how to explain to his daughter that Mommy coming for one dinner didn't mean Mommy was staying. "Daddy?" Sadie's voice came from the doorway, sleep rough and small. "Is it Christmas?" Ryan looked up and felt his heart constrict at the sight of her. Hair sticking up in every direction, pajamas twisted from sleep, eyes still half closed but filled with anticipation. "It's Christmas, baby," Ryan confirmed, opening his arms. Sadie ran to him and climbed into his lap, burrowing against his chest like she used to when she was smaller. "Is Mommy really coming today?" Sadie asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. "Yeah, she's really coming." "What time?" 4 o'clock. Sadie pulled back to look at him, studying his face with an intensity that always caught Ryan off guard. "Are you happy about it?" Ryan considered lying, considered saying of course he was happy, but something in Sadie's eyes told him she'd know the difference. She'd always been able to read him too well. "I'm nervous about it," Ryan admitted, "but I'm glad you're happy." "I'm really happy," Sadie said, and her smile was so bright it hurt to look at. "I asked Santa to bring Mommy back, and he did." Ryan's throat went tight. "You asked Santa for that?" "Yep, that's what I whispered to him. I said I didn't need any toys or anything, I just wanted Mommy to come home." Sadie's voice was matter of fact, like she'd just asked for a new bike. "And then we saw her at the mall, so Santa must have really good magic." Ryan held his daughter closer, pressing his face against her hair so she wouldn't see the tears burning in his eyes. This was why he'd invited Ava. This moment right here, Sadie's joy, her hope, her simple faith that the world could be good again. Ryan would walk through fire to protect that feeling, even if it meant opening his door to the woman who'd nearly destroyed him. "Come on," Ryan said, setting Sadie on her feet. "Let's go see what Santa brought you." They spent the morning in a blur of wrapping paper and ribbon, Sadie tearing into presents with the enthusiasm of a kid who still believed in magic. The dollhouse was a massive hit. She spent an hour just arranging and rearranging the furniture, creating elaborate stories about the tiny family that lived there. Ryan sat on the floor beside her, helping when asked, mostly just watching his daughter's face light up with each new discovery. By noon, the living room looked like a toy store had exploded. Ryan started cleaning up while Sadie played, gathering wrapping paper into garbage bags and trying to find homes for new toys in a house that was already too small. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and Ryan's stomach dropped, certain it would be Ava canceling or asking to come early, or somehow making this harder than it already was. But it wasn't Ava. It was Marcus, Ryan's best friend since high school. "Merry Christmas, man. How's the kid?" Ryan typed back. Good. Happy. Long story to tell you later. 3 dots appeared immediately. That sounds ominous. Everything okay? Ryan stared at the screen. Was everything okay? He had no idea. Ava's coming to dinner today. His phone rang 5 seconds later. What the hell do you mean Ava's coming to dinner? Marcus's voice was loud enough that Ryan had to pull the phone away from his ear. Keep your voice down, Ryan said, glancing toward the living room where Sadie was still absorbed in her dollhouse. And exactly what I said. She's coming at 4. Ryan. Marcus's tone shifted from shocked to serious. Are you out of your mind? Probably, Ryan admitted. He moved into the kitchen, lowering his voice. We ran into her at the mall yesterday. Sadie saw her and just ran to her. And Ava was crying and explaining, and Sadie was asking if she could come home, and I panicked and invited her for Christmas dinner. Jesus Christ, Marcus let out a long breath. How are you feeling about this? Like I'm going to throw up, Ryan said honestly. But Sadie's so happy, Marcus. You should see her. She asked Santa to bring her mom back and thinks she got her wish. How do I take that away from her? You don't, Marcus said quietly. But you also don't have to light yourself on fire to keep your kid warm. Ava left, man. She walked out without a word. You owe her exactly nothing. I know that, but I owe Sadie everything. And this is what she wants. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You need me to come over, provide moral support, run interference? No, but thanks. I think this is something we need to do alone. Ryan rubbed his free hand across his face. I just needed to tell someone before I talked myself out of it. For what it's worth, you're a better man than I am. I'd have told her to go to hell. I wanted to, Ryan admitted. But Sadie was right there, and she was so hopeful, and I just couldn't. They talked for a few more minutes before Ryan hung up, feeling slightly steadier but no less anxious. He checked the time. 1:30. 2.5 hours until Ava arrived. He needed to start cooking. The ham went into the oven at 2. Ryan prepped green beans and mashed potatoes while Sadie helped by arranging dinner rolls on a baking sheet, her tongue poking out in concentration as she made sure each one was perfectly spaced. It felt normal, this routine they'd developed over 3 years of holidays alone. But the extra place setting on the table was a constant reminder that today was different. At 3:30, Ryan sent Sadie to her room to change into the Christmas dress they'd bought last week. Red velvet with a white collar that made her look older than 5. While she was gone, Ryan changed into clean jeans and a button-down shirt, then stood in front of the bathroom mirror trying to see what Ava would see. A 32-year-old man with dark circles under his eyes and gray, starting to thread through his hair at the temples. Someone who looked tired and worn down and nothing like the hopeful 25-year-old she'd married. Daddy, can you help with my zipper? Ryan went to Sadie's room and zipped up her dress, then stood back to look at her. She'd tried to brush her own hair, with limited success, so Ryan grabbed the brush and worked through the tangles as gently as he could. Are you excited to see Mommy? Ryan asked, watching Sadie's face in the mirror. Super excited, Sadie said. Do you think she'll remember me? The question hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. Baby, of course she'll remember you. You're her daughter. But I was really little when she left. Maybe I look different now. Ryan set down the brush and turned Sadie to face him, taking her small hands in his. You do look different. You've grown 3 whole years. But Mommy will know you because mothers always know their kids, no matter how much they grow. Even if they've been gone a long time. Even then. Sadie seemed satisfied with this answer and turned back to the mirror, studying herself seriously. I want to look pretty for Mommy. You look beautiful, Ryan said, meaning it with everything he had. The doorbell rang at exactly 4 o'clock. Ryan felt his entire body tense at the sound. Sadie let out a squeal and ran toward the front door, but Ryan caught her gently by the shoulders. Hey, slow down, Ryan said. Let's take a breath, okay? But Mommy's here. I know, baby, but we need to go slow. Remember what we talked about? Mommy's going to be nervous too. They'd had this conversation over lunch, Ryan trying to prepare Sadie for the reality that Ava might be different, might be awkward, might not know how to be Mommy anymore. Sadie had listened with those serious eyes and promised to be patient. Ryan took a deep breath and opened the door. Ava stood on his front porch looking terrified. She'd changed since yesterday, wore a green sweater that looked new and jeans that actually fit, and she'd done something with her hair so it didn't hang quite so lifelessly around her face. She was holding a pie in both hands like a shield. "Hi," Ava said, her voice shaking. "I know you said not to bring anything, but I couldn't show up empty-handed. It's apple. I remembered it was your favorite." Ryan hadn't eaten apple pie in 3 years. The last one Ava had made was for Thanksgiving, 2 months before she left. He'd found it in the fridge 3 days after she disappeared, untouched and starting to mold, and had thrown it away along with half the contents of their kitchen because everything reminded him of her. "Come in," Ryan said, stepping aside. Ava walked through the door, and Sadie immediately attached herself to her mother's leg, hugging tight. Ava nearly dropped the pie, catching it at the last second as she looked down at Sadie with tears already forming in her eyes. "Hi, sweet girl," Ava said softly. "You look so beautiful." "I wore my Christmas dress," Sadie announced, stepping back to show it off. "Daddy and me got it special." "It's perfect," Ava said. She looked at Ryan, and he saw the question in her eyes. "Where should I put this?" "Kitchen's through there," Ryan said, gesturing. "I'll take your coat." Ava handed him the pie and shrugged out of her coat. She was thinner than Ryan remembered, her collarbones prominent above the neckline of her sweater, and he wondered what the past 3 years had been like for her, what her days looked like, whether she'd found any peace, whether she'd thought about them as much as he'd tried not to think about her. Ryan hung the coat in the hall closet and followed them into the kitchen, where Ava was standing in the middle of the room, looking around like she'd stepped into a museum. "You moved," Ava said. "This isn't our house." "I bought this place about 6 months after you left," Ryan said, his voice more defensive than he intended. "Needed a fresh start." "It's nice." Ava's voice was soft. "Feels like a home." "Because it is home," Ryan wanted to say. "Because I built this for Sadie, piece by piece, memory by memory, until the absence of you didn't echo in every corner." But he didn't say any of that. Instead, he checked the ham in the oven and pulled out a serving platter. "Can I help with anything?" Ava asked. "It's under control." "Mommy, do you want to see my dollhouse?" Sadie tugged on Ava's hand. "Santa brought it for me, and it has furniture and everything." Ava looked at Ryan, asking permission with her eyes. Ryan nodded, and Sadie dragged her mother toward the living room, chattering about all her new toys. Ryan stayed in the kitchen, finishing the green beans and trying to breathe through the tightness in his chest. He could hear them in the living room, Sadie's excited voice explaining each room of the dollhouse, Ava's softer responses punctuated by what sounded like crying. Ryan wanted to go in there and monitor, make sure Ava wasn't saying anything that would hurt Sadie later, but he forced himself to stay put. This was Sadie's moment, her chance to have her mother back, even if just for an afternoon. 20 minutes later, Ryan called them for dinner. They gathered around the small dining table that Ryan had bought at a garage sale and refinished himself. And for a moment, nobody spoke. The ham sat in the center of the table, surrounded by dishes of mashed potatoes, green beans, dinner rolls, and the apple pie Ava had brought. 3 plates, 3 glasses of water, 3 napkins folded beside 3 forks. "This looks amazing," Ava said, and Ryan could hear the thickness in her voice. "Thank you for having me." "Can we say what we're thankful for?" Sadie asked. "Like at Thanksgiving?" Ryan hesitated. They always did this, went around the table sharing gratitude before eating, but adding Ava to the tradition felt wrong, like she was infiltrating something that belonged to just the two of them. "Sure, baby," Ryan heard himself say. "You want to go first?" "I'm thankful for my dollhouse and my new dress, and for Daddy always taking care of me." Sadie smiled at Ryan, then turned to Ava. "And I'm thankful that Mommy came home for Christmas." Ava let out a sob that she tried to cover with her hand. I'm sorry, I'm just—" "Your turn, Mommy," Sadie prompted gently. Ava took a shaky breath, wiping at her eyes. "I'm thankful that your daddy is the kind of man who would let me in this house after what I did. And I'm thankful that you're healthy and happy and so incredibly beautiful. And I'm thankful for second chances, even when I don't deserve them." Everyone looked at Ryan. He sat there for a long moment, trying to find words that were true but wouldn't hurt anyone. "I'm thankful for Sadie," Ryan said finally. "Every single day." It was a deliberate omission, and everyone at the table knew it. Ava's face crumpled slightly, but she nodded like she understood. Sadie seemed satisfied and reached for the dinner rolls. They ate in near silence at first, punctuated by Sadie's chatter about school and her friends and the winter concert she'd been in last week where she got to sing a solo. Ava listened to every word like it was the most important thing she'd ever heard, asking questions, laughing at Sadie's stories, crying when Sadie casually mentioned that she'd learned to tie her own shoes last month. "You missed so much," Ava whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "So much." "What were you doing while you were gone?" Sadie asked, her child's curiosity innocent and devastating. Ava glanced at Ryan, uncertain. He gave a small nod. Sadie deserved honesty, even if it was painful. "I was getting help," Ava said carefully. "Remember how I told you Mommy was sick? I was in a place where doctors could help me get better, and then I was learning how to be strong again. It took a long time." "Are you all better now?" Sadie asked. "I'm better," Ava said. "Not perfect, but better. Some days are still hard, but I know how to handle them now." "That's good." Sadie took a bite of mashed potatoes, processing this. "Daddy has hard days too sometimes. I can tell because he gets really quiet and his eyes look sad." Ryan felt heat creep up his neck. He hadn't realized Sadie noticed those days, the ones where the weight of everything threatened to crush him, where he had to lock himself in the bathroom for 5 minutes just to cry where she couldn't see. "Your daddy is the strongest person I've ever known," Ava said, looking at Ryan with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Taking care of you all by himself these 3 years. That takes real strength." "He's a really good daddy," Sadie agreed. "He braids my hair and makes me breakfast and reads me stories every night, and he never forgets to pack my lunch even when he's really tired." "He was always good at taking care of people," Ava said softly, "even when they didn't deserve it." Ryan stood up abruptly, grabbing his empty plate. "I'll get dessert ready." He retreated to the kitchen before anyone could respond, his hands shaking as he cut slices of pie. This was too much. The memories, the regret in Ava's voice, the way Sadie kept looking between them like she was trying to puzzle out how all the pieces fit together. Ryan had thought he could handle one dinner, but every minute felt like walking on broken glass. "Ryan?" Ava's voice came from the doorway. "Don't," Ryan said without turning around. "Whatever you're going to say, just don't." "I was just going to ask where the plates are." Ryan pointed to the cabinet, still not looking at her. He heard her move across the kitchen, heard the cabinet open and close, heard her footsteps stop right behind him. "I know this is hard," Ava said quietly. "I know you didn't want me here. And I know sorry doesn't even begin to cover what I did to you, to Sadie, to our life. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see what you've done. How you've been everything she needed when I couldn't be anything at all. And I'm grateful. For this dinner, for the chance to see her, for you being a better person than I could ever be." "Stop," Ryan said, his voice rough. "Stop making me the hero here. You want to know the truth? There were days I hated you so much I couldn't breathe. Days I wanted to track you down just so I could ask you how the hell you could walk away from that little girl. Days I looked at Sadie and saw your face and had to leave the room because the anger was so strong I was afraid she'd see it." "I know," Ava whispered. "You have every right. I'm not finished." Ryan finally turned to face her, and he saw her flinch at whatever she saw in his eyes. "I did the hard work, the middle of the night fevers, the first day of school, the nightmares, the questions about why Mommy didn't love us enough to stay. I learned how to do pigtails and paint nails and talk to kindergarten teachers about why Sadie sometimes gets sad for no reason. I built this life from nothing because I had to, because she needed me to, because there was nobody else. So don't stand in my kitchen and tell me I'm strong like it's something admirable. I didn't have a choice." Ava was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. "You're right. You're absolutely right. I took the coward's way out and you had to be brave for both of us. And I'll never be able to make that up to you or to her. But I'm trying, Ryan. I'm really trying to be better." "For how long?" The question came out bitter. "How long until things get hard again and you decide we're better off without you? How long until Sadie gets attached and you disappear? Because I can survive you leaving again. But she can't." "I'm not going anywhere," Ava said fiercely. "I swear to you, I'm not going anywhere." I've been in therapy for 3 years, Ryan. I take medication. I have a support system. I know the warning signs now, and I know how to ask for help before it gets bad. I'm not the same person who left. Prove it, Ryan said. Don't just say it, prove it. How? Ava asked desperately. Tell me how, and I'll do it. I don't know, Ryan admitted. But words aren't enough. They weren't enough 3 years ago, and they're not enough now. Daddy? Sadie's small voice cut through the tension. They both turned to find her standing in the doorway, her face concerned. Why are you and Mommy fighting? We're not fighting, baby, Ryan said, forcing his voice to soften. We're just talking. You sound like you're fighting. Sadie walked over to Ryan and took his hand, then took Ava's hand with her other one. You're supposed to be happy. It's Christmas. Ryan looked down at his daughter, at the hope and confusion warring on her small face, and felt something in him crack open. You're right, Ryan said. We should eat pie. Come on. They went back to the table and ate Ava's apple pie in silence that felt heavier than before. Sadie tried to fill it with stories, but even her bright chatter couldn't completely mask the tension. When they finished, Ava helped clear the table despite Ryan's protests, the two of them moving around each other carefully in the small kitchen, like dancers trying not to collide. At 6 o'clock, Sadie started yawning despite her protests that she wasn't tired. Ryan knew the signs. His daughter always crashed after big emotional days, and today had been enormous. Bath time, Ryan announced. But Mommy just got here, Sadie whined. It's late, baby, and Mommy needs to get home. Sadie's face fell, and Ryan hated himself for being the one to put that expression there. But he couldn't do this anymore. Couldn't keep pretending this was normal, that having Ava in his house wasn't tearing him apart. Can Mommy read me a story? Sadie asked. Please? Just one story? Ryan looked at Ava, who was watching him with something like desperation in her eyes. One story, Ryan agreed. Ryan mocked. Then bed. Sadie's face lit up. She grabbed Ava's hand and pulled her toward the hallway, chattering about all her books and which one was her favorite. Ryan stayed in the kitchen, listening to the sound of water running in the bathroom, Sadie's voice echoing off the tile, Ava's softer responses. He should go supervise, should be there to make sure Ava didn't say anything wrong, didn't make promises she couldn't keep, didn't hurt Sadie in ways Ryan would have to repair later. But his legs felt too heavy to move, his body too exhausted to do anything but lean against the counter and breathe. 20 minutes later, Ava emerged from Sadie's room, closing the door softly behind her. She looked wrecked, eyes red, face blotchy, like she'd been crying the entire time. She wants you to come say goodnight, Ava said quietly. Ryan pushed off the counter and walked past Ava without responding. Sadie was tucked into her bed, her rabbit clutched to her chest, her eyes already half closed. Daddy? Sadie's voice was sleepy. I had the best Christmas ever. Ryan sat on the edge of her bed and stroked her hair back from her forehead. I'm glad, baby. Mommy read me 3 stories, and she remembered all the voices. That's nice. Is she going to come back tomorrow? Ryan's hand stilled. I don't know, Sadie. But she promised. Sadie's eyes opened wider, suddenly more alert. At the end of the story, she said she'd see me again soon. That means tomorrow, right? Ryan's jaw clenched. He'd specifically told Ava not to make promises, specifically said they couldn't guarantee anything beyond today. And she'd gone ahead and said it anyway. We'll talk about it tomorrow, Ryan said, kissing Sadie's forehead. Go to sleep now. Love you, Daddy? Love you too, baby. More than anything. Ryan waited until Sadie's breathing evened out before he left the room. He found Ava standing in the living room, arms wrapped around herself, looking at the pictures on the wall. 3 years of Sadie's life captured in frames that Ava had never seen. You told her you'd see her again soon, Ryan said, his voice flat. Ava turned to face him. Because I will, if you'll let me. That's not your decision to make. I know, but Ryan, please, I'm not asking to move back in or to have custody or to pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of her life, to see her sometimes, to build something new. You don't get to build anything, Ryan said, his voice rising despite his efforts to control it. You burned it all down. You don't get to waltz back in and start making plans. Then what do I get? Ava's voice cracked. Tell me what I'm allowed to have, and I'll take it. Anything. Just don't shut me out completely. Ryan wanted to say no, wanted to tell her to leave and never come back, to protect Sadie from the inevitable pain when Ava couldn't follow through. But he could still hear his daughter's voice. I had the best Christmas ever. One visit, Ryan said finally. Next week, supervised, at a park or somewhere public. 2 hours maximum. And if you're even 5 minutes late, if you cancel for any reason, if you do anything that hurts her, it's over. Do you understand? I understand. Ava was crying again, but there was relief in her face too. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, Ryan said tiredly. This isn't for you. It's never going to be for you. I know. Ava wiped at her face. Can I ask you one thing? What? That anger you talked about in the kitchen, the days you hated me so much you couldn't breathe, do you still feel that way? Ryan looked at this woman who had been his wife, who had given him the greatest gift of his life and then shattered everything around it. He thought about the past 3 years, the slow process of building a life from ruins, the gradual transformation of rage into something more manageable. Not forgiveness, he wasn't sure he'd ever get there, but something like acceptance. I don't know what I feel anymore, Ryan admitted, but it doesn't matter. What matters is Sadie. And if you're really back, if you're really staying, then you need to prove it every single day. Not with words, with actions, with consistency, with showing up even when it's hard. I will, Ava promised. I swear I will. Your coat's in the closet, Ryan said, turning away. I'll text you next week about when and where to meet. He heard her move toward the door, heard her pause like she wanted to say something more, heard the door finally open and close. Ryan stood in his living room surrounded by the debris of Christmas, torn wrapping paper still scattered despite his earlier cleanup, Sadie's new toys everywhere, the remnants of a dinner that had felt like walking through a minefield. His phone buzzed. Thank you for today, for giving me a chance, for being the father Sadie deserves. I know I don't have the right to ask for more, but I'm grateful for what you gave me. Orion stared at the message for a long time before typing back 3 words. Don't disappoint her. The response came immediately. I won't. I promise. Ryan put his phone down and sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Outside, he could hear cars driving past, probably families heading home from their own Christmas celebrations. Normal people with normal lives who didn't have to navigate this impossible situation. He thought about calling Marcus, processing everything that had just happened. But he didn't have the energy for explanations, for rehashing every moment, for analyzing Ava's words and his responses. Instead, Ryan sat in the quiet darkness of his living room and let himself feel the full weight of the day. Somewhere down the hall, Sadie was sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming about her mother coming back, about family dinners and bedtime stories and a life that looked the way she'd always imagined it should. And Ryan realized that he'd just opened a door he might not be able to close, started something that could heal his daughter or break her completely. He just hoped he'd made the right choice. The week between Christmas and New Year's stretched out like a tightrope Ryan had to walk without looking down. Every morning, Sadie woke up asking when she'd see Mommy again. Every night, Ryan texted Ava a time and place for their meeting, his thumb hovering over the send button for minutes before he could force himself to hit it. Every hour in between, Ryan second-guessed himself so thoroughly he felt like he was coming apart at the seams. Marcus called on the 27th, demanding details Ryan didn't have the energy to give. His mother called on the 28th, having heard through the family grapevine that Ava had resurfaced, her voice tight with concern and barely concealed anger. Ryan's sister texted on the 29th with a long message about protecting Sadie's heart that made Ryan want to throw his phone across the room because didn't they think he knew that? Didn't they think he'd been thinking about nothing else? By December 30th, Ryan had settled on Riverside Park for their meeting. It was public, well-populated, even in winter, with a playground where Sadie could burn off energy if things got awkward. He texted Ava the details. Saturday, 2 o'clock, don't be late. Her response came within seconds. I'll be there at 1:45, thank you. Ryan didn't respond. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold, the kind of weather that made people want to stay inside under blankets. Sadie woke up before dawn, too excited to sleep, and spent 2 hours trying on different outfits before settling on jeans and her favorite purple sweater with the unicorn on the front. She wanted to look perfect for Mommy, she explained, and Ryan's heart cracked a little more with each outfit change. What if she doesn't recognize me? Sadie asked for the third time that morning, standing in front of the bathroom mirror while Ryan combed through her hair. She'll recognize you, baby. We just saw her 5 days ago. But what if I look different today? Ryan met his daughter's eyes in the mirror and saw the real question underneath. What if Mommy doesn't come? What if this was all a dream? What if she leaves again? You look beautiful, Ryan said firmly, and Mommy is going to be so happy to see you. They arrived at Riverside Park at 1:50. Ryan had aimed for 2 o'clock exactly, not wanting to seem eager, but Sadie had been ready to go since noon and had made arriving early seem like the only way to prevent a meltdown. Ryan parked in the lot near the playground and scanned the area for Ava. She was already there, sitting on a bench near the swings, wearing the same green sweater from Christmas and a jacket that looked too thin for the weather. She was early by 15 minutes, Ryan realized, and something about that steadied him slightly. At least she was taking this seriously. "There's Mommy!" Sadie squealed, already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Wait," Ryan said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Remember what we talked about? We're going to take this slow, okay? Let Mommy and Daddy talk for a minute first." "But I want to play with Mommy." "I know, baby, but we need to set some rules. Can you be patient for me?" Sadie nodded, though her entire body was vibrating with anticipation. Ryan got out of the car and helped Sadie out, taking her hand firmly in his. Ava had seen them now and was standing up, her hands clasped in front of her like she didn't know what to do with them. They met in the middle of the path, Sadie practically dragging Ryan forward while he tried to maintain some semblance of control. Ava dropped to her knees as soon as they were close enough, opening her arms, and Sadie launched herself into them with the abandon of a child who'd never learned to guard her heart. "Hi, sweet girl," Ava said, her voice already thick with tears. "I missed you so much. I missed you too, Mommy. Do you want to see the swings? I can go really high now. Daddy taught me how to pump my legs." "I'd love to see that." Ava looked up at Ryan over Sadie's head, her expression a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "Thank you for bringing her." Ryan nodded but didn't respond. He wasn't ready for pleasantries, wasn't ready to pretend this was anything other than what it was. A trial run, a test to see if Ava could handle being in Sadie's life without destroying her. Sadie grabbed Ava's hand and pulled her toward the playground, leaving Ryan to follow behind. He watched as his daughter showed her mother the monkey bars she'd finally mastered, the slide she could go down backwards, the spot under the big oak tree where she liked to look for acorns. Ava listened to every word, asked questions, laughed at Sadie's stories, and cried when Sadie casually mentioned that Daddy sometimes came here when she was sad because the swings made her feel better. "You come here when you're sad?" Ava asked gently, kneeling beside Sadie. "Sometimes," Sadie said, "when I miss you." Ava's face crumpled and Ryan saw her struggle to hold herself together. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I made you sad." "It's okay," Sadie said with the easy forgiveness of childhood. "You're here now." "But for how long?" Ryan wanted to ask. "How long until you decide this is too hard? How long until Sadie's not enough to make you stay?" He kept those questions to himself and instead sat on a bench where he could watch them, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough away to give them space. Other families dotted the playground, a dad pushing a toddler on the baby swings, a mom helping 2 kids navigate the climbing structure, a grandmother watching her grandkids chase each other around the slide. Normal families doing normal things on a Saturday afternoon. Ryan pulled out his phone and pretended to check messages he didn't have, anything to avoid looking at the scene in front of him. But he couldn't stop hearing Sadie's laughter, bright and uncomplicated, the sound she made when she was purely happy. He couldn't remember the last time he'd heard her laugh like that. "Ryan?" Ava's voice pulled him from his thoughts. She was standing a few feet away, Sadie having run off to play with the little boy near the sandbox. "Can we talk for a minute? That's what we're doing, isn't it? I mean really talk, not with all the anger between us." "The anger doesn't just disappear because you want it to," Ryan said. "I know that." Ava sat down on the bench beside him, maintaining careful distance. But I need you to understand something. I'm not here to disrupt your life or to take Sadie away from you or to pretend I have any claim to the family you've built. I just want to be part of her life, however small that part needs to be. Why? Ryan asked. Why now? Why not 2 years ago or 1 year ago or any time before you showed up crying in a mall? Ava was quiet for a long moment, watching Sadie play. Because 2 years ago, I was barely holding myself together. 1 year ago, I was starting to feel human again, but I was so ashamed of what I'd done that I couldn't face you. And 6 months ago, I was finally strong enough to come back to this city, but I couldn't figure out how to knock on your door. I drove past your old house probably 50 times before I realized you'd moved. You were looking for us? Every day, Ava said. I'd see kids Sadie's age and wonder if one of them was her. I'd see dads with their daughters and wonder if that was you teaching her to ride a bike or helping her with homework or doing all the things I should have been there for. It was torture, Ryan, knowing you were somewhere in this city but not knowing how to get back to you. You had my number, Ryan pointed out. You could have called. And said what? Hey, I know I abandoned you and our daughter, but I'm feeling better now, so can I come back? What response could I possibly expect from that? So instead you just showed up? I didn't plan that. Ava's voice rose slightly, then dropped again. I wasn't stalking you at the mall. I was having a breakdown in public and Sadie found me. If she hadn't, I probably would have gone home and spent another 6 months working up the courage to reach out. Ryan studied her profile, trying to see past his anger to the truth underneath. She looked sincere, but Ava had always been good at seeming sincere. That's how she'd convinced him everything was fine right up until the day she left. What changed? Ryan asked. What made you want to come back? I got a job, Ava said. A real job, not just something to pay the bills. At a crisis helpline, talking to people who are where I was 3 years ago. And one night, I had a call from a mother who'd left her kids because she thought they'd be better off without her. And I recognized everything she was saying because I'd thought those exact same things. So I talked to her for 2 hours, told her about my own experience, convinced her to go home and get help instead of ending things. And after that call, I sat in my car in the parking lot and realized I'd been using my shame as an excuse, that I'd been so focused on what a terrible mother I'd been that I hadn't considered whether I could become a better one. So this is about you, Ryan said, about making yourself feel better. No? Ava turned to look at him directly. This is about Sadie, about her deserving a mother who fights to be in her life, even when it's hard, even when she doesn't think she deserves it. I can't change the past, Ryan, but I can choose what I do now, and I'm choosing to try. Sadie's voice cut through their conversation. Daddy, Mommy, look! She was at the top of the climbing structure, waving with both hands, her face split into a huge grin. I'm so high! Be careful, Ryan called automatically, his heart jumping into his throat the way it always did when Sadie was more than 3 feet off the ground. She's okay, Ava said softly. She's being careful. You don't know that. You don't know how she is because you haven't been here. The words came out harsher than Ryan intended, but he didn't take them back. Ava flinched, but nodded like she'd expected it. You're right. I don't know her the way you do. I don't know that she likes her sandwiches cut diagonally, or that she's afraid of thunderstorms, or that she sometimes talks in her sleep. I don't know any of the 1,000 little things that make her who she is. But I want to learn, Ryan, if you'll let me. Ryan watched Sadie navigate her way down the climbing structure with the confidence of a kid who'd done it 100 times. He'd been there for every milestone Ava had missed. The first time Sadie made it across the monkey bars, the first time she went down the big slide without crying, the first time she helped another kid who had fallen. He'd built this knowledge piece by piece, day by day, while Ava was wherever she'd been. She has nightmares, Ryan heard himself say. About you. She dreams that you come back, but then you turn into smoke and disappear. She wakes up crying and I have to rock her back to sleep while she asks me if you're real or if she made you up. Ava made a sound like she'd been punched. Ryan, she asks me questions I can't answer, like why some kids have mommies and she doesn't, like whether she did something wrong that made you leave, like whether you'd come back if she was better behaved or smarter or prettier. And I have to tell her that none of that is true, that you left because of things that had nothing to do with her, but I can see in her eyes that she doesn't quite believe me. I'm so sorry, Ava whispered. I'm so sorry I put that weight on her. Sorry doesn't fix it, Ryan said. Actions fix it. Consistency fixes it. Showing up every single time you say you will and proving that you're not going to disappear again, that's what fixes it. Then tell me how, Ava said. Tell me what you need from me and I'll do it. Ryan was about to respond when Sadie ran up to them, breathless and glowing. Mommy, did you see me climb? Did you see how high I went? I saw, sweet girl. You were amazing. Ava pulled Sadie into her lap, holding her close. You're so brave. Daddy taught me. He said if I'm brave about climbing, I can be brave about other things too. Sadie looked up at Ryan. Right, Daddy? Right, baby, Ryan confirmed, his chest tight. What other things are you brave about? Ava asked. Sadie thought about this seriously. I'm brave about going to school even when I'm nervous, and I'm brave about trying new foods even when they look weird, and I'm brave about missing you even though it makes me sad. Ava's arms tightened around Sadie, and Ryan saw tears sliding down her face again. You're the bravest person I know, Ava said. Braver than me. Why do grown-ups cry so much? Sadie asked, wiping at Ava's cheeks with her small hands. You cried at Christmas, and you're crying now. Sometimes grown-ups cry because they're sad, Ava explained. And sometimes they cry because they're happy. Right now I'm crying because I'm so proud of you and so happy to be here with you. Are you happy too, Daddy? Sadie turned to look at Ryan. Ryan met his daughter's eyes and saw the question underneath. Are we okay? Is this okay? Can I love her without hurting you? He wanted to tell her the truth, that he wasn't happy, that he was terrified and angry, and so far from okay it wasn't funny, but he couldn't put that burden on her. I'm happy that you're happy, Ryan said carefully. It seemed to satisfy Sadie, who wriggled out of Ava's lap and announced she wanted to go on the swings. They spent the next hour pushing her higher and higher, Sadie shrieking with delight every time she touched the sky. Ava stood on one side of the swing, Ryan on the other, and they fell into an awkward rhythm of taking turns, their hands occasionally brushing when they both reached for the chains at the same time. When Sadie finally declared she was hungry, Ryan checked his watch and realized it was almost 4 o'clock. 2 hours had passed without him noticing, and he felt a strange mixture of relief that it was over and disappointment that he'd somehow survived it. I should get her home, Ryan said. It's almost dinner time. Sadie's face fell. But Mommy just got here. We've been here 2 hours, baby, and Mommy needs to get going too. Can Mommy come to dinner? Sadie asked, looking between them hopefully. Not tonight, Ryan said quickly, before Ava could respond. But maybe we can see Mommy again next week. Really? Sadie's face lit up. Really? Really? Ryan looked at Ava, who was watching him with barely contained hope. He thought about the past 2 hours, about how Ava had been patient and present and hadn't made any promises she couldn't keep. He thought about how Sadie had laughed more today than she had in months, and he made a decision that felt both terrifying and inevitable. Really, Ryan confirmed. If Mommy wants to. I want to, Ava said quickly. I absolutely want to. Same time next week? Ryan asked, keeping his voice neutral. I'll be here, Ava promised, early. They walked back to the parking lot together, Sadie between them holding both their hands. Ryan tried not to think about how this must look to other people, a happy family finishing a day at the park. Tried not to notice how Sadie kept squeezing both their hands like she was afraid one of them might disappear if she let go. At the car, Ava knelt down to hug Sadie goodbye. I had so much fun today, sweet girl. Thank you for showing me all your favorite things. Will you really come back next week? Sadie asked, her voice suddenly small. I promise, Ava said. Same time, same place, and I won't be late. Okay. Sadie hugged her tighter. I love you, Mommy. Ava's breath caught. I love you too, baby. So much. Ryan got Sadie buckled into her car seat, then turned to find Ava standing a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Thank you, Ava said finally. For today. For giving me another chance. This isn't about chances, Ryan said. This is about Sadie. Don't forget that. I won't, Ava promised. Ryan, I know you don't believe me yet. I know you think I'm going to mess this up or disappear again, but I'm not. I'm going to show up every single week exactly when I say I will, until you start to believe me." "We'll see," Ryan said, which was the closest he could come to hope. He got in the car and drove away, watching in the rearview mirror as Ava stood in the parking lot, growing smaller and smaller until she was just a speck of green against the gray winter landscape. Sadie fell asleep within 5 minutes, exhausted from the emotional intensity of the afternoon, her head lolling against the car seat. Ryan's phone buzzed at a red light, a text from Ava. "Thank you again. Same time next week. I won't let you down." Ryan put the phone down without responding and drove the rest of the way home in silence, his mind spinning through everything that had happened. 2 hours, one afternoon, and somehow his entire carefully constructed world felt different, like a door had been cracked open that he hadn't realized was closed. At home, Sadie woke up long enough to eat chicken nuggets and watch a cartoon before falling asleep on the couch. Ryan carried her to bed, tucking her in and standing in her doorway for a long time, just watching her breathe. She looked peaceful in sleep, her face relaxed in a way it hadn't been for years. Ryan wondered if that was because of Ava, if having her mother back, even in this limited, supervised way, had lifted some weight he hadn't known she was carrying. His phone rang. "Marcus." "Well?" Marcus said without preamble. "How did it go?" Ryan sank onto the couch and told him everything: the playground, the conversation, Sadie's laughter, Ava's tears, the promise of next week. Marcus listened without interrupting, which Ryan appreciated because he wasn't sure he could have stopped talking even if he'd wanted to. "So you're doing this," Marcus said when Ryan finally ran out of words. "You're letting her back in." "I'm letting her see Sadie once a week in a public place with me present," Ryan corrected. "That's not the same as letting her back in." "Isn't it, though?" Marcus asked gently. "I mean, where does this go, man? She sees Sadie once a week for a month? Then what? Twice a week? Unsupervised visits? Sleepovers? At what point does this become co-parenting instead of supervised visits?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "I'm taking this 1 week at a time." "I just don't want to see you get hurt again," Marcus said. "Or Sadie. That kid deserves the world, and if Ava can't deliver it, she shouldn't be making promises. She hasn't promised anything except to show up next week. And if she does, and the week after that, and the month after that, then what? Then I guess we'll figure it out," Ryan said. He was too tired for Marcus's hypotheticals, too exhausted to think beyond the immediate future. "Look, I need to go. Thanks for checking in." After he hung up, Ryan sat in the quiet darkness of his living room and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back all afternoon. The fear that Ava would break Sadie's heart, the anger that she got to walk back into their lives after choosing to leave, the small, traitorous spark of something that might have been hope, that maybe, possibly, this could actually work. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Ava, this one longer. "I know you didn't respond to my last message, and that's okay. I don't expect responses, but I needed to tell you something I didn't get to say at the park. Seeing you with Sadie today, the way you anticipate what she needs before she asks, the way you know exactly how high she likes to swing, the way she looks at you like you hung the moon, it made me realize something. You're not just her father, you're her hero. And I'm grateful that she had you when she couldn't have me. I'm grateful she got to know what real, consistent, unwavering love looks like. And I'm going to work every day to become someone worthy of being in her life alongside you. See you next Saturday." Orion read the message 3 times, then put his phone down and pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. He didn't want Ava's gratitude, didn't want her recognition of what he'd done. He wanted to stay angry, wanted to hold on to the certainty that she was the villain in this story and he was the hero, because that was simpler than acknowledging the complicated truth. That Ava was a woman who'd been sick, who'd made terrible choices, who was trying to do better. That he was a man who'd survived something impossible and was now being asked to forgive the unforgivable. That Sadie was a child caught between them who deserved better than either of them could probably give her. But she also deserved a mother, Ryan thought. Even a flawed one. Even one who'd left. Because Sadie had spent 3 years with a hole in her life shaped like the woman who gave birth to her, and maybe, just maybe, letting Ava try to fill it was the right thing to do. Ryan went to bed that night with more questions than answers, but for the first time since Christmas Eve, he felt like he could breathe. 1 week down, 1 visit survived. If they could do it once, maybe they could do it again. Maybe. The second Saturday came faster than Ryan expected. One minute he was dropping Sadie off at school on Monday morning. The next he was waking up to her excited voice announcing that today was the day they'd see Mommy again. The week had passed in a blur of routine punctuated by Sadie's constant questions about whether Mommy would really come, whether she'd remember to be early, whether they could stay at the park longer this time. Ryan had no answers except the ones he gave every time. "We'll see, baby, we'll see." Ava texted twice during the week, once on Wednesday to confirm the time, and once on Friday to ask if Sadie had any favorite snacks she could bring. Ryan responded to the first with a simple yes and ignored the second entirely. He wasn't ready for Ava to start bringing things, making gestures, acting like this was anything more than supervised visits in a public place. But when Saturday arrived and they pulled into the Riverside Park parking lot at 1:50, Ryan saw Ava sitting on the same bench with a small backpack beside her, and he knew she'd brought the snacks anyway. She stood when she saw them, wearing jeans and a heavier coat this time, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that made her look younger than her years. Sadie was out of the car before Ryan could stop her, running full speed toward her mother. Ava caught her and spun her around, both of them laughing, and Ryan felt something twist in his chest that he refused to name. "You came!" Sadie exclaimed when Ava set her down. "You came early again." "I told you I would," Ava said, kneeling to Sadie's level. "And I brought something for you." She pulled out a small box from her backpack, and Sadie opened it to reveal homemade cookies, the kind with M&Ms pressed into the top that Ryan remembered Ava used to make before everything fell apart. "You remembered!" Sadie bounced on her toes. "These are my favorite." "I remembered," Ava said softly, glancing at Ryan. He looked away, unwilling to acknowledge the gesture. They fell into the pattern from the previous week, Sadie showing Ava around the playground, Ava asking questions and listening with full attention, Ryan watching from a distance trying to protect himself from hoping this might actually work. But this week felt different. Easier somehow. Ava seemed more confident, less fragile, and Sadie was more relaxed, not clinging quite so desperately to every moment like it might be her last. An hour in, Sadie convinced them both to play tag. Ryan tried to refuse, citing his role as supervisor rather than participant, but Sadie's pleading eyes broke him the way they always did. They chased each other around the playground equipment, Sadie squealing with delight every time she managed to tag one of them, and for a few minutes Ryan forgot to be angry, forgot to guard his heart, forgot everything except the sound of his daughter's laughter mixing with the cold winter air. When they finally collapsed on the grass, all three breathing hard, Sadie laid between them, looking up at the gray sky. "This is nice," Sadie said. "All of us together." Ava's eyes met Ryan's over Sadie's head, and he saw the question there. "Is this okay? Are we doing this right?" Ryan looked away without answering. "Can we get hot chocolate?" Sadie asked, sitting up suddenly. "There's a place across the street, please." Ryan checked his watch. They still had 45 minutes left. "I don't know, baby. It's crowded on Saturdays." "Please, Daddy, I'll share with you and Mommy." "I can get it," Ava offered. "If that's okay, I'll just run across the street while you two stay here." "I want to come," Sadie protested. "Then we'll all go," Ryan said, before he could think better of it. This was breaking his own rule about staying in the park, about maintaining public neutral territory. But the hope in Sadie's face made him reckless. The coffee shop was indeed crowded, filled with families seeking warmth from the January cold. They stood in line together, Sadie between them holding both their hands again, and Ryan tried not to notice the knowing looks from other customers who probably assumed they were just another family on a Saturday outing. While they waited for their order, Sadie spotted a familiar face from her kindergarten class and ran over to say hello, leaving Ryan and Ava standing awkwardly by the pickup counter. "She seems good," Ava said quietly. "Happy." "She is happy," Ryan confirmed. "She's been asking about you all week." "Really?" Ava's face lit up in a way that made her look almost like the woman Ryan had married. "What does she ask?" "Whether you'll come back, whether you'll remember, whether this is real or if she's going to wake up and you'll be gone again." Ryan's voice was flat, delivering facts without emotion. Ava flinched. I hate that she has to question it. Then don't give her reason to. I won't, Ava said. Ryan, I know you're waiting for me to fail. I can feel it every time you look at me, but I'm not going to. I'm going to show up every week until you stop expecting me to disappear. Actions, Ryan reminded her, not words. Their order was called before Ava could respond. They collected 3 hot chocolates and found a small table in the corner where Sadie joined them, her face flushed from excitement about seeing her friend. She chattered about school and her teacher and the art project they were working on, and Ava listened like every word was precious. Miss Parker says we're doing family trees next week, Sadie announced between sips of hot chocolate. We have to draw our families. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. This was exactly the kind of complication he'd been worried about. That sounds fun, Ava said carefully. What are you going to draw? Well, I'm going to draw me and Daddy, obviously. Sadie stirred her hot chocolate with her straw, thinking. And Uncle Marcus because he's like family, even though he's not related, and Grandma and Grandpa even though they live far away. That's a good family tree, Ava said. And you, Sadie added, looking at Ava. I'm going to draw you, too. Ava's hand trembled as she set down her cup. You don't have to, sweet girl, not if it makes things complicated. But you're my mommy, Sadie said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Mommies go on family trees. Ryan saw Ava struggling not to cry and felt torn between protecting his daughter from potential embarrassment at school and letting her claim the family she wanted to have. Before he could figure out what to say, Sadie had moved on to another topic, oblivious to the emotional landmine she'd just detonated. They finished their hot chocolate and walked back to the park, but the sky had grown darker and the temperature had dropped. Other families were packing up to leave, and Ryan realized their 2 hours were nearly up. I should get her home, Ryan said. It's going to rain soon. Can we stay 5 more minutes? Sadie asked. Please? 5 minutes, Ryan agreed. Sadie ran off to climb the structure one more time, leaving Ryan and Ava standing together near the bench. Ava was watching Sadie with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. Love mixed with grief mixed with something that might have been determination. She's going to ask if I can come to her school thing, Ava said. The family tree presentation, and I don't know what to say. Say no, Ryan said immediately. That's too much, too fast. But she wants me there. She wants a lot of things she can't have. That's part of being 5. Ryan's voice was harder than he intended. We're doing weekly visits. That's all we agreed to. I know, you're right. Ava wrapped her arms around herself. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to push boundaries. I just hate disappointing her. Then you should have thought of that 3 years ago. The words hung between them, sharp and unforgiving. Ava nodded like she'd expected them, deserved them, but Ryan saw the way they landed and felt a flicker of something that might have been regret. I'm going to say something, Ava said quietly, and I need you to hear it even though you don't want to. I know what I did was unforgivable. I know I destroyed your life and abandoned my daughter and have no right to be here. But I'm trying, Ryan. I'm really trying. And every time you remind me of my failures, it makes it harder to believe I can do better. Good, Ryan said. It should be hard. Nothing about this should be easy for you. I'm not asking for easy. I'm just asking you to stop waiting for me to fail. Because I can feel it, and it's exhausting, and I'm worried that if I spend all my energy proving I won't leave, I won't have any left for actually being a good mother. Ryan stared at her, anger and something else warring in his chest. You want me to trust you? To just forget everything and act like we're co-parents instead of strangers who share a kid? No. I want you to give me the space to earn your trust without constantly reminding me why I don't deserve it. I already know I don't deserve it, Ryan. I live with that knowledge every single day. But Sadie deserves a mother who isn't constantly drowning in guilt. And I can't be that for her if every conversation with you is a reminder of what a terrible person I am. Daddy, Mommy, watch this, Sadie's voice interrupted them. She was at the top of the climbing structure, preparing to go down the twisty slide. Be careful, Ryan called. She's being careful, Ava said. She's capable, Ryan. You have to let her try things. Don't tell me how to parent her, Ryan snapped. I've been doing this alone for 3 years. I know what she's capable of. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying you don't have to be so afraid all the time. I'm not afraid. I'm cautious. There's a difference. Is there? Ava asked gently. Ryan didn't answer because Sadie was running toward them, her face bright with accomplishment. Did you see me? I went down the twisty slide without holding on. I saw, baby. You were very brave. Ryan forced himself to smile, to push down the argument with Ava, to focus on what mattered. They walked back to the car through the first few drops of rain, Sadie between them talking about what she wanted to do next week. At the car, she hugged Ava goodbye and made her promise 3 times that she'd come back. Same time, same place, Ava assured her. I promise. After Sadie was buckled in, Ryan turned to Ava one more time. She was already walking toward her own car, but something made him call out to her. Ava. She turned, rain starting to darken her hair. I'll think about the school thing, Ryan said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Ava's face transformed with hope. Thank you. That's all I'm asking, just for you to think about it. Ryan got in the car and drove away, his mind spinning. Sadie fell asleep within minutes, exhausted again, and Ryan drove through the rain wondering how he'd gotten here. 6 months ago, his life had been simple. Hard, but simple. Now it was complicated in ways he'd never imagined, and he wasn't sure whether that was progress or just another kind of pain. That night, after Sadie was in bed, Ryan did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He pulled out the box from the back of his closet, the one he'd packed when they moved and never opened. Inside were photos from before, wedding pictures, Sadie's newborn photos, family snapshots that showed a version of himself he barely recognized anymore. Young and hopeful, and so stupidly in love with Ava it hurt to look at. He found the photo he was looking for near the bottom. Ava in the hospital bed holding newborn Sadie, her face exhausted and radiant, looking down at their daughter like she was a miracle. Ryan had taken the photo, his hands shaking from lack of sleep and overwhelming emotion, and he remembered thinking, this is it. This is everything I'll ever need. 6 weeks later, Ava started to change. 6 months later, she was barely holding on. 2 years later, she was gone. Ryan stared at the photo for a long time, trying to reconcile the woman in the picture with the one who'd shown up at the mall crying. They were the same person, but they weren't. Something had broken between those 2 moments. Something Ryan had been too exhausted and overwhelmed to see until it was too late. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. I'm sorry for pushing earlier. About the school thing and about telling you not to be afraid. You're an incredible father, and I have no right to question your choices. Whatever you decide about the family tree presentation, I'll support. Thank you for today, for all of this. Orion looked at the photo again, then at the text, then put both away without responding. He was tired of being angry, but he wasn't ready to not be angry yet. Somewhere in between those 2 states was where he existed now, and he didn't know how to move forward from there. The next week followed the same pattern. Ava arrived early at the park. Sadie ran to her with open arms. They played and talked and existed in their strange new configuration for 2 hours. But this time, when Ryan mentioned the family tree presentation, Sadie's whole face lit up in a way that made what came next inevitable. Can Mommy come? Sadie asked. Please, Daddy. All the other kids have their mommies there. Ryan looked at Ava, who was carefully not looking hopeful, carefully not pressuring him, carefully giving him space to make his own choice. He thought about what Marcus would say, what his family would say, what any reasonable person would advise. Then he thought about Sadie's face when she asked Santa to bring her mommy back. Mommy can come, Ryan said, but she has to sit with me, and we're just there to watch. We're not making a scene. I won't make a scene, Ava promised. I'll just sit quietly and watch. That's all. Sadie threw herself at Ryan, hugging him so tight he could barely breathe. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over her head, Ryan saw Ava mouth the same words. Thank you. He nodded once, uncomfortable with her gratitude, uncomfortable with how this kept expanding beyond what he'd intended. The family tree presentation was on a Thursday afternoon. Ryan took off work early and met Ava in the school parking lot, both of them walking into the building together, trying to ignore the curious looks from other parents. Sadie's classroom was decorated with construction paper trees, each one showing a different family configuration, some with just one parent, some with grandparents, some with siblings, some with step-parents. Sadie's tree was in the middle row, and Ryan's chest tightened when he saw it. She'd drawn him tall and strong at the center, herself next to him holding his hand. On the other side was Ava, drawn in purple, which Sadie had once told him was the color of love. And around them were Marcus, her grandparents, even the family dog they'd had to give away when Ava left. She included everyone, Ava whispered, standing beside Ryan, looking at the drawing. She has a big heart, Ryan said. Sometimes too big. They found seats at the back while Sadie stood with her classmates at the front. Each child took turns presenting their family tree, and Ryan watched Ava's face as they listened to other kids talk about their families. Some were simple, some were complicated, but all of them were claimed with pride. When it was Sadie's turn, she stood up straight and confident, holding her tree like it was the most important thing in the world. "This is my family," Sadie announced. "This is my daddy Ryan. He takes care of me and makes me breakfast and helps me with homework and plays with me even when he's tired. He's the best daddy in the whole world." Ryan felt his throat close up. "And this is my mommy Ava. She was sick for a while, but she's better now. She comes to the park with us on Saturdays, and she remembers my favorite cookies, and she's learning how to be my mommy again." Beside him, Ryan heard Ava make a small sound. He glanced over and saw tears streaming down her face. "And this is Uncle Marcus, who tells funny jokes. And these are my grandparents who send me presents, and this is everybody who loves me." The end. The class clapped, and Sadie beamed. She looked directly at Ryan and Ava sitting together in the back row, and her smile could have lit up the entire room. After the presentation, parents were invited to mingle. Several people approached Ryan. Some he knew from previous school events, some who'd clearly heard through the grapevine about Ava's return. One mother, Jennifer, whose daughter was Sadie's best friend, pulled Ryan aside while Ava was talking to Sadie. "I'm glad you're giving her a second chance," Jennifer said quietly. "I know it can't be easy." "It's not," Ryan admitted, "but you're doing it anyway. For Sadie. That takes strength." Jennifer squeezed his arm. "Just remember to take care of yourself too, okay? You can't pour from an empty cup." Ryan nodded, though he wasn't sure his cup had been anything but empty for 3 years. When they finally left the school, Sadie insisted on holding both their hands again as they walked to the parking lot. At the cars, she hugged Ava goodbye and then turned to Ryan with serious eyes. "Did I do good, Daddy?" Sadie asked. "You did perfect, baby," Ryan assured her. "And you're not mad that I put Mommy on my tree?" Ryan knelt down to Sadie's level, taking her small face in his hands. "I'm not mad. I'm proud of you for being brave enough to claim the family you want." "But you and Mommy aren't really together," Sadie said. "I know that. I'm not a baby." Ryan's heart broke a little at the grown-up understanding in his 5-year-old's voice. "No, we're not together, but we're both your parents, and we both love you. That makes us family, even if it looks different than other families." "Okay." Sadie seemed satisfied with this answer. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Ryan laughed despite everything. "It's January, baby." "Ice cream tastes good in January too," Sadie argued. Ryan glanced at Ava, who was watching them with that same expression of love and loss she'd worn since Christmas. "You want to come?" he heard himself ask. Ava's eyes widened. "To ice cream?" "Just for an hour. Then you have to go." "Yes," Ava said quickly. "Yes, I'd love to." They went to the ice cream shop on Main Street, the one with 50 flavors and sticky tables. Sadie got her usual, chocolate with sprinkles, while Ryan and Ava both ordered coffee ice cream, a coincidence that made Sadie giggle and announce that her parents had matching tastes. They sat in a booth, Sadie between them, and talked about nothing important. Sadie's artwork, the upcoming winter break, a movie Sadie wanted to see. Normal parent conversation that felt surreal given everything that had happened. Ryan found himself relaxing despite his intentions, found himself almost enjoying the moment before he remembered he wasn't supposed to. At one point, Ava's phone rang. She glanced at it and her face tightened. "I need to take this," Ava said. "I'm sorry. Work emergency." She stepped outside while Ryan and Sadie finished their ice cream. Through the window, Ryan could see Ava pacing, her free hand gesturing as she talked. She looked stressed, and Ryan wondered what kind of job required taking crisis calls on a Thursday evening. When Ava came back, her face was pale but composed. I'm sorry about that. One of our regular callers was having a hard night. You work at a crisis line? Ryan asked, remembering what she'd mentioned in the park. Yes. Suicide prevention and crisis intervention. Ava sat back down. It's intense, but it helps. Knowing I can talk someone else through their darkest moments when I couldn't get through my own. That's brave, Ryan said, and meant it. Ava looked at him, surprised. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. They finished their ice cream in silence that felt less hostile than before. When they finally left, walking back to their cars in the cold January evening, Sadie was yawning and leaning against Ryan's leg. Thank you for including me today, Ava said. In the school thing and this. It meant more than you know. Sadie wanted you there, Ryan said. I'm doing this for her. I know, but still. Thank you. Ryan got Sadie buckled into her car seat, and when he straightened up, Ava was standing there looking like she wanted to say something more. What? Ryan asked. Can I ask you something? And you can say no, but I just want to ask. What is it? Would you consider dinner, all three of us? Not at your house or mine, somewhere neutral. Just to see if we can handle a longer stretch of time together. For Sadie. Ryan's first instinct was to say no, to shut this down before it went any further. But he thought about Sadie's face at the school presentation, thought about how she'd drawn them all together on her family tree, thought about how she kept asking if they could all be together more often. One dinner, Ryan said. Next Friday. We pick the restaurant, and if it goes badly, we go back to park visits. Deal, Ava said, and the relief in her voice was palpable. Thank you, Ryan. Really. Ryan drove home with Sadie asleep in the back seat, and his mind racing through everything that had just happened. Somewhere in the past month, this had stopped being about giving Ava a chance and started being about building something new. He wasn't sure when that shift had occurred, but he felt it now. A subtle change in the air, like maybe this impossible situation might actually be possible after all. At home, he carried Sadie inside and tucked her into bed, watching her sleep for a long moment before heading to his own room. His phone buzzed with a text from Ava. I know you're doing this for Sadie, but I want you to know I see how hard this is for you, how much you're sacrificing to give her what she needs. You're the strongest person I've ever known, and I'm grateful Sadie has you. See you Friday. Orion stared at the text for a long time before typing back 3 words. Don't be late. The week leading up to Friday dinner felt like standing on the edge of something Ryan couldn't name. He'd chosen a family restaurant downtown, the kind with crayons and coloring sheets for kids, booths with high backs that offered some privacy, and comfort food that wouldn't feel too formal. Neutral territory where they could pretend to be a normal family for an hour or two without the weight of everything unspoken crushing them. Sadie counted down the days like it was Christmas all over again. She picked out her outfit by Wednesday, changed her mind on Thursday, and by Friday morning had settled on her favorite dress with leggings and the sparkly shoes her grandmother had sent for her birthday. Ryan watched her primp in front of the bathroom mirror, humming to herself, and felt his chest tighten with equal parts hope and terror. They arrived at the restaurant at 6 o'clock. Ava was already there, standing near the entrance in a dress Ryan had never seen before. Simple and navy blue, making her look put together in a way that reminded him of the woman she'd been before everything fell apart. She'd done something different with her hair too, and Ryan realized with a jolt that she was nervous. Actually nervous about this dinner. Sadie ran to her immediately, and Ava caught her in a hug that lasted long enough to make other diners smile at them. The hostess led them to a booth in the back corner, and they settled in with Sadie insisting on sitting between them, her head swiveling back and forth like she was afraid one of them might disappear if she looked away too long. The first 15 minutes were awkward in the way Ryan had expected. They ordered food, Sadie chattered about her week at school, and Ryan and Ava spoke to Sadie more than to each other. But somewhere between the appetizers arriving and Sadie getting absorbed in her coloring sheet, something shifted. Ava asked Ryan about his work. He was a mechanic at a shop on the west side, had been there since before Sadie was born, and Ryan found himself actually answering instead of deflecting. Do you still work on motorcycles? Ava asked, and Ryan was surprised she remembered. When I can, Ryan said. Not much time for hobby work these days. You were always good with your hands, Ava said, then immediately flushed. I mean, at fixing things. building things. Ryan felt heat creep up his own neck and focused on his water glass. Yeah, well, somebody had to fix everything after you left. The words came out sharper than he intended, and he saw Ava flinch. Sadie looked up from her coloring, her eyes moving between them with worry. I'm sorry, Ryan said quickly, for Sadie's benefit more than Ava's. That was unnecessary. No, it wasn't, Ava said quietly. It was true. You had to fix everything I broke. Can we not do this here? Ryan gestured towards Sadie, who was watching them with that too-aware expression that meant she was picking up on every undercurrent. You're right. I'm sorry. Ava took a breath and turned to Sadie with a smile that looked only slightly forced. Tell me more about your art project, sweet girl. Sadie launched into an explanation of the winter scene they were painting in class, and the tension eased slightly. Their food arrived and they ate in relative peace, though Ryan was hyper-aware of every movement Ava made, every glance she gave him, every moment her guard seemed to drop. He'd spent a month watching her from a distance at the park, supervising their interactions, maintaining control. But here in a restaurant, sitting across from her in a booth, he couldn't maintain the same distance. She was right there, present in a way that felt both familiar and foreign. Halfway through dinner, Sadie announced she had to use the bathroom. Before Ryan could offer to take her, Ava stood up. Can I take her? Ava asked, and the vulnerability in her voice made it clear how much the question cost her. Ryan hesitated, his protective instincts warring with the knowledge that Sadie needed these moments with her mother. 5 minutes, he said finally. 5 minutes, Ava agreed. They walked away hand in hand, Sadie chattering up at her mother, and Ryan sat alone in the booth feeling untethered. He pulled out his phone to give his hand something to do and found a text from Marcus. How's the dinner going? You still alive? Ryan typed back. Survived so far. Still weird. Weird how? Ryan stared at the question, trying to articulate what he was feeling. Like we're playing house, pretending to be something we're not. Or maybe you're becoming something new, Marcus replied. That's allowed too, you know. Before Ryan could respond, Ava and Sadie returned. But instead of Sadie looking happy, her face was blotchy with tears, and Ava looked stricken. What happened? Ryan was out of the booth immediately, kneeling in front of his daughter. Baby, what's wrong? There was a lady in the bathroom, Sadie said through hiccuping sobs. And she asked if Mommy was my babysitter, and when Mommy said she was my mom, the lady said, That's not possible because Mommy doesn't look like me, and it's okay, Ryan said, pulling Sadie into his arms. Over her head, he saw Ava standing rigid, her hands clenched at her sides. The woman was cruel, Ava said, her voice shaking. She said some things that were completely inappropriate, and I tried to shield Sadie from it, but she hurt anyway, and I'm so sorry, Ryan. I should have handled it better. It's not your fault, Ryan said, surprising himself. He stood up with Sadie in his arms, feeling her heart racing against his chest. Let's go home. But we didn't finish dinner, Sadie protested weakly. We can finish at home. I'll order pizza. Ryan looked at Ava. You should come too. Ava's eyes widened. To your house? Sadie shouldn't have to end the night upset, and you shouldn't have to go home feeling like you failed. The words came out before Ryan could stop them, and he realized with a jolt that he meant them. Come on, we'll order pizza and watch a movie and pretend tonight didn't go sideways. Are you sure? Ava asked. I'm sure, Ryan said, though he wasn't sure about anything anymore. They paid the bill and drove separately to Ryan's house. Sadie quiet in the back seat as Ryan tried to explain that some people said mean things, but they didn't matter. That Ava was absolutely her mother, and nobody got to define their family except them. By the time they pulled into the driveway, Sadie seemed somewhat recovered, though her eyes were still red. Inside, Ryan's house felt different with Ava in it. This was her first time here, he realized. She'd never seen the home he'd built for Sadie, the space he'd created from nothing to replace what they'd lost. He watched her take it all in, the photos on the walls, the toys scattered around, the kitchen that was clean but lived in. It's a good home, Ava said softly. You made her a good home. I did my best, Ryan said. While he ordered pizza, Ava helped Sadie change into pajamas. He could hear them in Sadie's room, Ava's voice gentle as she helped Sadie pick out the comfiest clothes, and Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. This was what Sadie had been missing. Not just a mother at the park or at school events, but a mother in the everyday moments. The pajama selections and bedtime routines and casual intimacy of home. They ate pizza on the living room floor while Sadie picked a movie, some animated thing about a princess Ryan had seen approximately 40 times. Sadie sat between them on the couch, and gradually her body relaxed, the trauma of the bathroom encounter fading under the comfort of being sandwiched between her parents. Halfway through the movie, Sadie fell asleep with her head on Ava's lap and her feet on Ryan's leg. Ava looked down at her daughter with such profound love that Ryan had to look away. "She's exhausted," Ava whispered. "Should I move her?" "Give her a few more minutes," Ryan said. "She likes falling asleep to movies." They sat in silence while the movie played, both of them afraid to move and wake Sadie. In the flickering light from the TV, Ryan studied Ava's profile and tried to reconcile all the versions of her that existed in his mind. The woman he'd fallen in love with. The woman who'd abandoned them. The woman sitting in his living room cradling their sleeping daughter. They were all her, and none of them were complete. "I think about that day a lot," Ava said suddenly, her voice barely audible. "The day I left. I packed a bag and wrote that stupid note, and I stood in Sadie's doorway watching her sleep. She had her rabbit even then, remember? And she was making these little sounds in her sleep, and I thought, this is the last time I'll see her like this. So peaceful, so perfect, and I convinced myself that leaving was the kindest thing I could do." "Don't," Ryan said. "I need to say this, please." Ava's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying yet. "I drove to that bridge and I sat there for 2 hours with my phone in my hand. I kept picking it up to call you, to tell you what I was about to do, but I couldn't make my fingers work. And then I thought about Sadie growing up being told her mother killed herself. And I realized that was worse than growing up being told her mother left. At least if I left, she could imagine I was somewhere being happy. At least she could imagine I loved her, but circumstances kept us apart." "She didn't imagine that," Ryan said. "She imagined she'd done something wrong, that she wasn't enough to make you stay." Ava let out a sob she tried to muffle with her hand. I know I made it worse by leaving. But in that moment, sitting on that bridge, it seemed like the less harmful option. Stay and eventually hurt them worse, or leave and let them think I was selfish. I chose selfish because at least selfish didn't mean broken beyond repair." Ryan felt something crack open in his chest, some wall he'd been maintaining since Christmas Eve. "I hated you," he said. "For months I hated you so much I couldn't breathe. Every time Sadie asked about you, every time I had to be both parents, every time I looked at her and saw your face, I hated you. And then the hate turned into something else. Not forgiveness. Maybe never forgiveness. But understanding, I guess, that you were sick, and sick people don't make rational choices." "I'm not sick anymore," Ava said. "Or at least I'm managing it. Therapy 3 times a week, medication. I'll probably be on for life. Support groups that keep me accountable. I built a whole infrastructure to make sure I never get that low again." "And if you do?" Ryan asked. "If despite all that, you wake up one day and feel yourself slipping, what then?" "Then I call my therapist or my crisis line supervisor or my support group, or I check myself back into treatment, or I do whatever it takes to keep myself safe without leaving." Ava looked at him directly. "But I don't run, Ryan. Not anymore. I learned that running doesn't solve anything. It just spreads the pain around." They sat with that for a while, the movie ending and autoplaying into another one neither of them were watching. Sadie stirred slightly but didn't wake, her face peaceful in sleep. "I should go," Ava finally said. "It's late and you need to put her to bed." "Stay," Ryan said, and the word surprised both of them. "Just until I get her settled. Then we need to talk." Ava nodded, her expression uncertain but hopeful. Ryan carefully extracted himself from Sadie's feet and lifted her into his arms. She mumbled something unintelligible and wrapped her arms around his neck, still mostly asleep. He carried her to her bedroom and tucked her in, pulling the covers up to her chin and making sure her rabbit was within reach. When he came back to the living room, Ava was standing by the bookshelf looking at photos. She turned when she heard him, and Ryan saw she was holding a picture of Sadie at 4 years old, gap-toothed and grinning at the camera. "I missed this," Ava said. "When did she lose her front teeth?" 6 months ago, she was eating an apple and one just fell out. She was so excited she made me call everyone we know to tell them. I would have loved to see that. Ava set the photo down carefully. I've missed so much, Ryan, and I know I can never get it back. But I want to be here for what comes next. If you'll let me. What does that look like? Ryan asked. Being here? Because weekly park visits were supposed to be it. That was the boundary. And now we're having dinners and you're in my house and Sadie's asking when you can come to her soccer games and I don't know where the line is anymore. Maybe there doesn't have to be a line, Ava said carefully. Maybe we just figure it out as we go. That's not how I work. I need structure. I need to know what we're doing so I can protect Sadie if it falls apart. I'm not going to fall apart, Ava said firmly. I need you to believe that, Ryan. I know I haven't earned it yet, but I need you to at least consider the possibility that I'm here to stay. Ryan walked to the window and looked out at his quiet street. When you left, I promised myself I'd never let anyone hurt Sadie the way you hurt her. And I've kept that promise for 3 years. But now you're back and she loves you, and if you leave again, it will destroy her. It will destroy both of us. So forgive me if I'm not ready to just figure it out as we go. Then tell me what you need, Ava said, coming to stand beside him. Tell me what I have to do to prove I'm not going anywhere. Ryan was quiet for a long time, thinking. Show up, he finally said. Not just once a week at the park. Show up for the boring stuff. The dentist appointments and the grocery store trips, and the nights when Sadie has nightmares and needs someone at 3 a.m. Show up for 6 months straight without missing once, and maybe I'll start to believe you. Deal, Ava said immediately. Give me your schedule. Tell me when the appointments are. Let me help with the boring stuff. I want to be there for all of it. You might regret saying that, Ryan said. Being a parent isn't just the fun moments. It's exhausting and thankless, and there are days you'll want to walk away. Then I'll call my therapist on those days, Ava said, but I won't walk away. I swear to you, Ryan, I won't walk away. They stood at the window together, not touching but close enough that Ryan could feel the warmth radiating from her body. It felt surreal, standing in his living room with his ex-wife making promises about the future. But underneath the surreal was something else, something that felt almost like possibility. I should really go, Ava said. It's almost 10. Ryan walked her to the door, and they stood in the entryway in that awkward space where neither of them knew how to say goodbye. Finally, Ava reached out and touched his arm briefly. Thank you for tonight, for bringing me here, for letting me be part of her routine. It means everything. Don't thank me yet, Ryan said. You haven't survived the boring stuff. Ava smiled, and it was the first genuine smile Ryan had seen from her since she'd come back. I'm looking forward to it. The boring stuff is what makes a life. After she left, Ryan stood in his quiet house, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath him. He pulled out his phone and texted Ava before he could overthink it. Sadie has a dentist appointment Tuesday at 4. If you want to come. The response came within seconds. I'll be there. Thank you for trusting me with this. Ryan didn't respond, just put his phone down and went to check on Sadie one more time before bed. She was sprawled across her mattress, her rabbit clutch tight, her face peaceful in sleep. She looked happy, Ryan thought. Happier than she'd been in 3 years. Maybe that was worth the risk. The next 6 months unfolded in a series of small moments that gradually built into something bigger. Ava came to the dentist appointment and held Sadie's hand while the hygienist cleaned her teeth. She showed up to soccer practice every Thursday, cheering from the sidelines beside Ryan. She met them at the grocery store on Saturday mornings and helped Sadie pick out snacks for her lunchbox. She came to the house when Sadie had the flu and held her hair back while she was sick, then stayed up all night taking turns with Ryan monitoring her fever. She showed up, every single time. No excuses, no cancellations, no signs of wavering. Ryan watched her carefully at first, looking for cracks, waiting for the moment when it would become too much and she'd start making excuses. But the moment never came. Ava was steady in a way he'd never seen her be before. And gradually, so gradually he barely noticed it happening, Ryan's guard started to lower. They fell into routines. Ava would come over Tuesday and Thursday evenings for dinner, helping cook while Sadie did homework at the kitchen table. She'd attend Sadie's school events, sitting beside Ryan in the audience. She'd take Sadie to the park on Saturday afternoons while Ryan caught up on errands. They were co-parenting, Ryan realized. actually co-parenting in a way that felt natural and sustainable. But there were still boundaries. Ava never stayed past 8 o'clock on weeknights. She never tried to be alone with Sadie without Ryan's knowledge. She texted before coming over, asked permission before making plans, and respected every limit Ryan set without question or complaint. She was trying so hard to prove herself that sometimes Ryan felt guilty for making her work so hard. In April, Sadie asked the question Ryan had been dreading. "Daddy, is Mommy going to move back in with us?" They were sitting at the kitchen table working on a school project about butterflies, Ryan's hand stilled on the construction paper he'd been cutting. "What makes you ask that, baby?" "Because she's here all the time now, and we do family stuff together. And I heard Lily's mom say that when parents spend lots of time together, it means they're getting back together." Ryan set down the scissors and turned to face his daughter. "Mommy and I are not getting back together. We're friends now, and we both love you, but we're not going to be married again." "Why not?" Sadie's voice was small. "If you're friends and you both love me, why can't we all live together?" "Because sometimes people are better as friends than as husband and wife. Your mom and I, we're learning how to be good parents together. But that doesn't mean we're going to be a couple again." "But I want us to be a real family," Sadie said, and her eyes were filling with tears. "We are a real family," Ryan said gently. "Families come in all different shapes, baby. Some kids have parents who live together. Some have parents who live apart. Some have one parent, some have two moms or two dads. There's no one right way to be a family. What matters is that everyone loves each other and shows up when it counts." "But it's not fair," Sadie said, and now she was crying in earnest. "All my friends have normal families, and I just want to be normal too." Ryan pulled her into his lap, holding her while she cried. "I know, sweetheart. I know it's hard, but normal isn't the same as happy. Some kids with normal families aren't happy at all, and some kids with different kinds of families are the happiest kids in the world." "Are you happy, Daddy?" Sadie asked, pulling back to look at him. The question stopped Ryan cold. Was he happy? 6 months ago, he would have said he was content, that he'd built a good life from the ruins, and that was enough. But now, with Ava back in their lives, with co-parenting becoming routine, with the constant low-level anxiety about whether this would last, was he happy? "I'm getting there," Ryan said honestly. "Are you happy?" "Mostly," Sadie said. "I just wish we could all be together all the time." "I know, baby. I know." That night, after Sadie was in bed, Ryan texted Ava about the conversation. She called him immediately. "I'm sorry," Ava said without preamble. "I know my being around more is confusing her. Should I pull back?" "No," Ryan said. "She needs you. She's just processing what this means, what we are to each other." "What are we to each other?" Ava asked quietly. Ryan didn't have an answer. They talked for an hour that night, longer than they'd talked since Ava had come back. About Sadie's question, about their boundaries, about what co-parenting meant for the long term. And somewhere in that conversation, Ryan realized something had changed. He didn't hate Ava anymore, didn't even resent her most of the time. She'd become someone he relied on, someone he trusted with their daughter, someone who'd proven through 6 months of consistency that she meant what she said. "I think we should talk about what happens next," Ava said as their conversation wound down. "We can't stay in this holding pattern forever." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Sadie's going to keep asking why we don't live together, and we need to have a clear answer. Either we're working towards something more, or we're not. And if we're not, we need to help her accept that this is what our family looks like." "We're not working towards something more," Ryan said quickly. "That's not what this is." "Okay," Ava said, and he heard acceptance in her voice. "Then we need to sit down with her and explain that clearly. Not in a way that hurts her, but in a way that helps her understand that love doesn't always look the way she thinks it should." "You're right," Ryan admitted. "I'll think about how to do that." After they hung up, Ryan lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Ava was right. They couldn't stay in limbo forever. Sadie needed certainty, needed to know what shape their family would take. And Ryan needed to figure out what he actually wanted, because somewhere in the past 6 months, the lines had gotten blurry in his own mind too. 2 weeks later, on a warm May evening, Ryan invited Ava to stay for a family meeting after dinner. They sat Sadie down in the living room, both of them on the couch with Sadie between them, and Ryan felt like he was about to deliver news that would either help his daughter or hurt her. "Sweet girl, we need to talk about something important," Ryan started. "You've been asking about Mommy moving in with us, about us being a normal family, and we want to explain something to you." Sadie looked between them, her expression guarded. "Are you going to tell me no again?" "We're going to explain why no is the right answer for us," Ava said gently. "Your daddy and I love you more than anything in the world. But when we were married, before you could remember, we weren't good for each other. We made each other sad, and we've both worked really hard to become healthier, happier people. But that doesn't mean we should be married again." "Why not?" Sadie asked. "If you're both happy now, why can't you be happy together?" "Because sometimes people are better apart than together," Ryan explained. "Your mom and I, we're good at being parents together now. We can have dinner and go to your games and help with homework. But living together, being married, that's different. That requires a different kind of love than what we have." "But you used to love each other that way," Sadie insisted. "What changed?" Ava and Ryan exchanged a look, and Ryan saw his own uncertainty reflected in her eyes. What had changed? Or more accurately, what hadn't changed back? "People grow and change," Ava said carefully. "Sometimes they grow together, and sometimes they grow apart. Your daddy and I grew apart. And even though we're friends now, even though we both love you, we're not the same people we were when we got married. We're different now, and those different people aren't meant to be together the way we used to be." Sadie was quiet for a long time, processing this. "So we're never going to live together? Not ever?" "Probably not, baby," Ryan said. "But that doesn't mean we're not a family. We'll always be your family. We'll always be here for you. It just might look different than what you see with your friends' families." "I don't like different," Sadie said, and her voice was thick with tears. "I just want to be normal." "I know," Ryan said, pulling her close. "But different doesn't mean bad. Different just means our family is special in its own way." Sadie cried for a while, and they let her, both of them holding her and murmuring reassurances. Eventually her tears subsided and she pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeve. "Can I ask you something?" Sadie looked at Ava. "If you and Daddy aren't getting back together, does that mean you might marry someone else someday?" Ava's face went pale. "I don't know, sweet girl. Maybe someday, but not for a long, long time. Right now, I'm just focused on being the best mom I can be to you." "And you, Daddy? Will you marry someone else?" Ryan's chest tightened. "I don't know either, baby. Maybe someday. But right now, you're the most important person in my life. That's not going to change no matter what." Sadie seemed to accept this, though her face was still sad. "Can I go to my room now? I want to be alone." "Of course," Ryan said. "Come get us if you need anything." They watched Sadie walk down the hallway to her room, and after her door closed, Ryan let out a long breath. "That was brutal," he said. "But necessary," Ava replied. "She needed to hear it from both of us." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling around them. Then Ava stood up, preparing to leave as she always did. "Ava, wait," Ryan said. "Can we talk for a minute?" She sat back down, looking uncertain. "Of course. What's on your mind?" "When Sadie asked if we might marry other people someday, and you said maybe, but not for a long time, did you mean that?" "Yes," Ava said. "Why?" "Because I realized something tonight. When she asked me the same question, my first thought wasn't maybe. It was no. And then I wondered why that was my answer." Ava's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't speak. "I think," Ryan continued slowly, working through his thoughts as he spoke, "I've been so focused on protecting myself and Sadie from getting hurt again that I haven't let myself consider any other possibilities. I've been holding on to the anger and the hurt because it felt safer than letting them go. But tonight, sitting here with you and Sadie, explaining why we're not getting back together, I realized I didn't actually have a good answer. The reasons that made sense 6 months ago don't make as much sense now." "Ryan," Ava said carefully, "what are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know," Ryan admitted. "I'm saying that maybe I've been so determined to keep boundaries up that I haven't noticed we've already crossed most of them. You're here 4 days a week. Sadie calls you when she's upset. We parent together like we've been doing it for years instead of months. And somewhere in all of that, You stopped being my ex-wife who abandoned us and started being just Ava. The person who shows up, the person I trust with our daughter, the person I find myself wanting to talk to at the end of a long day. Ava's eyes were wet. I don't want you to feel pressured into anything. I meant what I said to Sadie. I'm focused on being her mom. If that's all I ever get to be in your life, I'll be grateful for it. What if I wanted more? Ryan asked. The question scared him, but he forced himself to ask it anyway. Then we'd have to take it very, very slowly, Ava said. We'd have to date like strangers, not like people who used to be married. We'd have to build something completely new, not try to resurrect what we had before. Because that version of us is gone, Ryan. We're different people now. I know, Ryan said, and I'm not saying I'm ready for that. I'm just saying maybe I'm not completely opposed to the idea anymore. Ava reached out and took his hand, and Ryan let her. That's enough, she said. That's more than I thought I'd ever have. So let's just sit with that for now and see what happens. They sat together on the couch, holding hands while the evening light faded outside, and Ryan felt something settle in his chest that might have been peace. He wasn't ready to call it love, wasn't ready to make promises or change the boundaries they'd established. But he was ready to stop being quite so afraid of the future. The months that followed were different, subtle shifts that probably wouldn't have been noticeable to anyone outside their small family, but which felt monumental to Ryan. Ava stayed past 8 o'clock sometimes, helping clean up after dinner or just talking on the couch after Sadie went to bed. They started texting about things that had nothing to do with Sadie, articles they'd read, shows they were watching, random thoughts that occurred to them during the day. They went to Sadie's end-of-year school performance together and sat close enough that their shoulders touched, and neither of them moved away. In June, Ryan invited Ava to Sadie's 6th birthday party. Not as a co-parent supervising from the sidelines, but as a guest, as someone who belonged there. Ava came early to help set up and stayed late to help clean up. And when Sadie blew out her candles and wished for her family to always be together, Ryan didn't feel the same panic he would have felt months earlier. In July, they took Sadie to the beach for a day trip. Just the three of them, no structure or supervision or careful boundaries. They built sand castles and played in the waves and ate ice cream that melted faster than they could lick it. And when Sadie fell asleep in the car on the way home, exhausted and happy, Ryan and Ava talked quietly in the front seat about everything and nothing. I've been thinking about something, Ava said as they pulled onto the highway. About what you said in May, about maybe wanting more. Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Yeah? I think we should go on a date, a real date. Just the two of us. No Sadie, somewhere we can actually talk about what this is becoming. Okay, Ryan said, and was surprised by how much he meant it. When? Next Friday? My mom said she'd watch Sadie overnight if we wanted. Ryan glanced over at her in surprise. Your mom knows about us? About whatever this is? I talk to her every week, Ava said. She's part of my support system. And yes, she knows I'm trying to rebuild my life. She knows I'm hoping for a second chance with you. She wants to meet Sadie, actually, when you're ready for that. Ryan thought about this. About Ava building a life that included therapy and support systems and plans for the future. About her thinking in terms of second chances and family reunification. About her wanting him to be part of that future. Okay, Ryan said. Next Friday. Let's see what happens. The date was awkward at first. Both of them dressed up and nervous like teenagers instead of people who'd been married and had a kid together. They went to a restaurant neither of them had been to before. Neutral territory where they couldn't hide behind the familiar. And they talked, really talked, for the first time in years. Ava told him about her time in treatment, about the long months of learning to recognize the signs of her depression, about building coping mechanisms and support networks. She told him about her job at the crisis line, about the people she talked off ledges, about how helping others helped her remember why she'd chosen to stay alive. Ryan told her about the first year after she left, about the anger and grief and overwhelming responsibility of being a single parent, about the small victories. Sadie's first day of preschool, the first time she told him she loved him without prompting, the night he realized they were going to be okay. About the fear that had lived in his chest for 3 years that he was somehow failing Sadie by not being enough. You were more than enough, Ava said, reaching across the table to take his hand. You were everything, and I'm sorry I put you in that position. I'm sorry I made you have to be both parents. I'm sorry too, Ryan said, for holding on to the anger so long, for making you work so hard to prove yourself, for not seeing sooner that you really had changed. They talked through dessert and coffee, through the restaurant emptying around them, through the staff giving them gentle hints that they needed to close. And when they finally left, walking to their cars in the parking lot, Ryan pulled Ava into a hug that lasted longer than necessary. Thank you, Ava whispered against his shoulder, for giving me another chance, for letting me back into your life. Thank you for not giving up, Ryan said, for showing up every single time, even when I made it hard. They pulled apart slowly, and in the amber glow of the parking lot lights, Ryan saw Ava clearly. Not the woman who'd left, or the woman who'd come back broken, but someone new, someone stronger, someone worth taking a chance on. Can I kiss you? Ava asked. Ryan's heart was pounding. Yeah, he said. Yeah, you can. The kiss was tentative at first, both of them testing boundaries, remembering how this worked between them. But then it deepened into something that felt both familiar and completely new. And Ryan felt 3 years of careful guardedness finally start to crack open. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Ava was smiling. Wow. Yeah, Ryan agreed. Wow. They dated through the rest of the summer, taking it slow, building something new instead of trying to resurrect what they'd had before. They told Sadie they were trying to see if they could be more than friends, and she was so excited she could barely contain herself. They set boundaries and respected them, both of them conscious of the fact that they had a daughter watching their every move, learning from them what love and commitment looked like. In September, a year after Ava had come back into their lives, they sat on Ryan's back porch while Sadie played in the yard. The evening was warm, the kind of late summer night that made everything feel possible. I've been thinking about something, Ryan said. That's usually dangerous, Ava teased. I'm serious. Ryan took her hand. I've been thinking about what it would look like if you moved in. Not immediately, but maybe in a few months after we've dated long enough to be sure this is what we both want. Ava's breath caught. Ryan, are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure that I want to try, Ryan said. I'm sure that Sadie deserves to have both her parents under one roof. And I'm sure that you've proven, over and over for the past year, that you're here to stay. So yeah, I think we should talk about what it would look like to be a family again. A real family. Not the way we were before, but something new. Something better. Ava was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. I would love that, but only if you're absolutely sure. I don't want you to do this just for Sadie. I'm doing it for all of us, Ryan said. For Sadie, because she deserves parents who love each other and are committed to making it work. For you, because you've earned the right to be part of this family again. And for me, because I'm tired of being afraid. I want to choose hope instead. They sat together as the sun set, planning a future that felt both terrifying and inevitable. They'd take it slow, they agreed. Ava would stay over some weekends, then more often, then eventually move her things in gradually. They'd go to couples therapy to make sure they were building on solid ground. They'd keep communicating, keep being honest, keep showing up for each other even when it was hard. When they told Sadie the news a few weeks later, she literally jumped for joy. We're going to be a real family? She asked, her eyes shining. We already are a real family, Ryan corrected gently. But yes, Mommy's going to live with us. We're going to try being together again, but different than before. Better than before. When? Sadie demanded. After Christmas, Ava said. That gives us time to make sure we're doing this right. Sadie counted on her fingers. That's 3 whole months. It'll go fast, Ryan promised. And in the meantime, Mommy will be here more often. She'll start staying over some nights. We'll practice being together so when she moves in for good, we'll already know how it works. The months between September and Christmas were a careful dance of integration and boundary testing. Ava stayed over Friday and Saturday nights, then added Wednesday. She moved some clothes into Ryan's closet, then some books onto his shelves, then gradually her presence expanded until it felt natural to see her things mixed with his. They fought sometimes, usually about parenting decisions or household responsibilities, but they fought differently than they had before. with intention and care, taking breaks when things got heated, coming back to talk it through when they'd both calmed down. They went to therapy together every other week, working through old wounds and new anxieties, building tools to handle conflict better than they had the first time. And Sadie blossomed. She was more confident at school, more willing to take risks, more secure in the knowledge that both her parents loved her and weren't going anywhere. Her teacher commented on the change, said Sadie seemed happier and more settled than she'd been in previous years. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after Sadie had spotted Ava crying in the mall, they sat together on Ryan's front porch, watching snow fall softly on the quiet street. Sadie was asleep inside, exhausted from the excitement of Christmas Eve. Ava's things were packed and ready to move in officially after the holidays, though she'd been essentially living there for weeks already. "A year ago, I never would have believed we'd be here," Ryan said. "A year ago, I was ready to give up," Ava admitted. "I'd been back in town for months but couldn't work up the courage to find you. And then Sadie saw me, and everything changed." "She saved us both," Ryan said. "Her and her big heart." "No," Ava disagreed. "You saved us. You're the one who made the choice to let me back in. You could have shut the door and you would have been justified. But you chose to give me a chance. That took real courage." Ryan pulled Ava closer, and she leaned against him, both of them wrapped in blankets against the cold. "I was terrified," Ryan admitted. "I'm still terrified sometimes. That this won't work. That we'll hurt each other again. That Sadie will suffer if we fail." "We might fail," Ava said honestly. "There's no guarantee. But we're trying, Ryan. We're really trying, and that's all we can do." They sat together watching the snow accumulate on the lawn, on the cars, on the street. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that both her parents loved her and were together. And tomorrow, Christmas Day, they'd wake up as a family. Not the family they'd been before, but something new. Something built on honesty and hard work and the daily choice to show up for each other. "Merry Christmas," Ava whispered. "Merry Christmas," Ryan replied. And in that moment, sitting on his porch with snow falling around them and his daughter sleeping safe inside and the woman he'd never stopped loving beside him, Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He felt complete. Not perfect, not without fear, but complete. Like all the broken pieces had finally found a way to fit back together in a new pattern that was somehow stronger than the original. They were a family, imperfect and unconventional, and built from the ruins of something that had fallen apart. But they were together, and this time, Ryan believed, they were strong enough to stay that way.